Get out! My mother-in-law, Catherine's harsh words hit me like a cold wind when it was decided that my husband would be sent to work in another country. Catherine took our house away from me and my little girl. With no place to go, I ended up in the park, holding my 2-year-old daughter, feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. Suddenly, police officers surrounded us. "Please come with us to the station," they said as rain poured down, making me shiver from the cold. Reluctantly, I followed them to the police station. There, I was surprised to see someone unexpected waiting for me. "My name is Emma, and I'm turning 35 this year. I met my husband Bob at work, and after dating for a year, we got married. When we had our daughter Lily 2 years ago, I stopped working. Now, I live with Bob, Lily, and my mother-in-law, Catherine. We used to rent a place, but after Catherine's husband passed away and she started having trouble with her knees, we decided to live together and bought a new apartment. We thought it would be best to live somewhere with good transportation access because of Catherine's knees. Buying an apartment was cheaper than a house at the time, and it has an elevator, which makes life easier. Catherine also preferred the apartment, so we made a down payment and took out a 35-year loan. Bob's job often requires him to travel or relocate, but since we bought the apartment, we were told he wouldn't be transferred for a while. However, he travels for work more than other employees, about once a week to other states. Having a 2-year-old daughter, I feel really stressed when my husband Bob goes on his business trips. At first, my mother-in-law Catherine was helpful, but now she doesn't help with taking care of our daughter at all. Instead, she makes more work for me. For example, she eats and leaves her dirty dishes lying around, and she doesn't rinse cooking utensils after using them. I'm often busy with our daughter, so by the time I notice, the food is stuck to the dishes, making them hard to clean. Even when I ask her to at least rinse them, she just says sorry and promises to do better next time, but she doesn't. I notice that she rinses the dishes when my husband is around, but not when I'm alone. This made me think that Catherine is intentionally making things difficult for me. Sometimes, when she asks if I need anything from the store and I say no, she later tells me she actually needed something, which happens a lot. I used to try to help Catherine a lot because of her bad knees, but now I'm feeling less inclined to do so because of her behavior. I thought about talking to my husband Bob about it, but he's already stressed from work, so I didn't want to add to his worries. Catherine's behavior started soon after we moved in together, and it's been going on for years now. When I talked to a friend about it, she said it sounds like Catherine is bullying me and suggested I talk to Bob about it. But I worry that if I do, Catherine, who doesn't have any other family, might end up in a care facility. So I thought it might be better to just deal with it. However, one day, something happened that made me reconsider. That day, I planned to drop off my daughter Lily at my parents' house. They love having Lily over for sleepovers. "Thanks for always bringing Lily. We love having her here. Why don't you stay over sometimes too?" my mom suggested. "I'd love to, but I'm worried about leaving Catherine alone. I'll head home." "Just don't spoil Lily with too many toys," I replied. After a nice chat, I left and headed back to our apartment where Catherine was waiting. When I got back, I realized I had forgotten my keys inside. At first, I was worried, but then I remembered Catherine was home. I tried calling her using the intercom, but there was no answer. Maybe she had gone out. I decided to wait outside for a while. But even after waiting for 2 hours until it got dark, Catherine didn't come back. When another resident returned and unlocked the main entrance, I followed them in. Catherine rarely goes out at night, so I was sure she was still at home. I rang the intercom again, but still no response. I could hear a faint sound from inside, confirming Catherine was there. I tried a few more times, but she refused to answer. Feeling defeated, I decided to stay at a nearby motel for the night and planned to sort things out when my husband Bob returned from his trip. "What happened?" "Out shopping." I told Bob that Catherine had locked me out. He was understandably upset for me, but Catherine just brushed it off, saying, "Oh, maybe I didn't hear you because of my hearing. I'm getting old, you know," with a smirk on her face. I was relieved to be back inside. After getting my keys, I went to pick up Lily from my parents' house. When I talked to my parents about what happened, they said, "Sounds like Catherine is making things difficult for you. If it gets too much, you can always come back here." Their comforting words brought tears to my eyes, but I quickly wiped them away before heading home with Lily. For a while, things seemed okay with Catherine. But then, out of nowhere, Bob's international transfer became final. It was a permanent move, not just a short business trip. We finally bought a place, and now this international assignment. "What do you think?" Bob asked me. "I think it's best for you and Lily to stay in the US, I replied. But when he asked if I could handle living with my mom, I hesitated. Thinking about the potential stress it could cause Lily, I decided it would be better for us to stay in the US. After we made that decision, Bob had to leave for Europe. Although he was worried about us, he was really busy with work, so it was just me, Lily, and Catherine at home. But things quickly went downhill once Bob left for Europe. Catherine's attitude completely changed. On a stormy day when it wasn't safe to go outside, Catherine dropped a bombshell on me. "Now that Bob's gone, wouldn't it be better if you and Lily move out?" she said. "Excuse me? What do you mean?" I asked, shocked. "Just what I said. I'll take over from here. I just feel I can't relax with strangers in the house. I'd appreciate it if you could leave right now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Catherine's request felt like a slap in the face. Despite not being blood relatives, I had always treated her like family and tried my best to make our living situation comfortable. But to Catherine, it seemed like we were just unwanted guests. As I contemplated gathering our belongings and returning to my parents' place, Catherine uttered, "Instead of wasting time, why don't you just leave?" Before I could react, Lily and I found ourselves standing outside, still in our everyday clothes, evicted from our own home. No matter how hard I knocked on the door, Catherine refused to let us back in. Lost and bewildered, I carried Lily through the pouring rain to a nearby park. Thankfully, there was a shelter there that provided some relief from the rain. Ideally, I would have checked into a motel or gone back to my parents' house. But I had left my wallet and phone inside. Feeling helpless, I sat in the park, trying to figure out what to do next. Time seemed to blur as the rain continued to pour down. Exhausted and cold, I started to drift off to sleep despite the darkness and biting cold. I worried about Lily catching a cold. As terrible as it seemed, the only option I could think of was to walk to my parents' house, even though it would take 3 hours. As I sat there pondering our predicament, I noticed 2 faint lights in the distance coming closer. Due to the rain, it was hard to see clearly, but I could make out that they were from 2 police officers. I thought maybe they could offer some assistance, but before I could approach them, one of the officers called out to me. "Are you Emma? And is this little one Lily?" the officer asked. Surprised by their recognition, I weakly replied, "Yes, that's us." "Please come to the station with us," the officer said. "Why, the police station?" I asked, feeling puzzled. Wondering if something was wrong, Lily and I followed the officer's instructions and got into the patrol car. We were shivering from being out in the rain for so long, but the officers had brought large towels to help keep us warm. "You might need these. We've got some spare clothes back at the station for you," they said kindly. Curious about why they knew about us and why we were headed to the police station, I asked, "How did you know where to find us?" They replied, "We'll explain everything once we're back at the station. For now, just try to relax." Exhausted, I soon drifted off to sleep and woke up to find that we had arrived at the police station. Following the officers inside, I was surprised to see Catherine and my uncle waiting there. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" I asked, puzzled by his presence. "He was contacted by Bob," my uncle explained. "Bob suspected you might be having problems with his mom, and since he's overseas, he asked me to keep an eye on things for him." According to my uncle, Bob had talked to him about this issue previously. He said Bob had asked him to keep an eye on things because he couldn't be there himself. My uncle had seen us out in the rain earlier today. He had considered taking us in himself. But he thought Catherine's actions were extreme, so he decided to report it to the police. That's how the officers knew where to find us and came to help. Catherine had also been summoned to the police station. She sat on a sofa, glaring at me, appearing unaware of why she was there. "Why do I have to be here? My knee is bad, you know. If Bob was here, this wouldn't be happening," Catherine argued. But the whole situation stemmed from Bob asking my uncle for help. In discussions with the police, it seemed likely that there could be legal consequences. Therefore, I was advised to consider hiring a lawyer. That's an exaggeration. I just locked the door, that's all. I didn't do anything else, Catherine defended herself. Do you even realize what you've done? You threw Emma and a little child out in pouring rain. That's unforgivable. My uncle defended us, asserting that I was the rightful owner of the house. That's impossible. Bob is the head of the household. He's the rightful owner. Now that he's not here, it should be mine, Catherine argued. Catherine believed Bob was the owner, but she was mistaken. In fact, my uncle, who runs a real estate business, helped us get a great deal on a condo. Bob suggested putting the property under my name. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I'm grateful I listened to Bob's advice. Following my uncle's guidance, I decided to hire a lawyer. The lawyer explained that it would be difficult to remove Catherine from the house. Therefore, the best option might be to place her in a care facility. Upon hearing the lawyer's advice, I immediately called Bob to explain the situation. Bob hadn't realized the situation had escalated so much and said he wanted to return from Japan to discuss it properly. He also mentioned he was considering placing Catherine in a facility. Meanwhile, Catherine, oblivious to all this, was snacking on crackers casually at the police station. Since I couldn't return home with Catherine, I decided to stay with my parents until Bob returned. He would be back in a week, giving us time to think about our next steps. If Bob didn't support me, divorce seemed like the only option. I regretted not seeking advice sooner. A week later, Bob returned from Europe and was at the house with Catherine, so I moved back home from my parents' place. Bob had to return to Europe soon due to the urgency of his job. He could only stay in Japan for a few days, so we needed to discuss our next steps. I heard some things from Emma's uncle. Is all of that true? Bob asked. It's all lies. I haven't done anything. Emma's plotting something to evict me. Catherine stubbornly refused to admit any wrongdoing. She even accused me of scheming against her. Bob, who I expected to support me, seemed to want to consider Catherine's perspective. I understand. So do you have any evidence to prove Emma's plotting something? He asked. Evidence? Of course not, Catherine replied. I see. Emma, do you have any evidence? Bob turned to me. To be honest, I've been so busy with work, I haven't been able to keep an eye on things. I'm not sure who to believe, I admitted. I handed Bob something I had with me. What's this? He asked. It was a voice recorder I had been using. It contained recordings of Catherine's verbal abuse towards me, including the time she evicted us. When Bob played it, he heard Catherine saying hurtful things like, "Such a worthless wife. I wonder why he even married you." Hearing this, Catherine quickly began to defend herself. This is taken out of context. Everyone has their moments, right? I was just frustrated at that time, but it was just this once. As Catherine claimed this, the voice recorder played more recorded verbal abuses, showing that it wasn't just a one-time thing. Bob's hand, holding the voice recorder, trembled with tension and anger. Meanwhile, Catherine looked guilty. Mom, what is this about? Bob asked, but Catherine remained silent. If you won't answer, then I assume this is all true. If so, I need to protect Emma and Lily. You understand that, right? Bob's anger was palpable, something I had never seen in him before. Catherine, seeing this side of Bob for the first time too, looked frightened and couldn't say a word. After several discussions before Bob's return to Europe, I made it clear that I couldn't continue living with Catherine. With Lily around, I couldn't risk another incident like the one before. Bob seemed to agree, leaning towards placing Catherine in a care facility. However, Catherine strongly opposed the idea, making the discussions more complicated. Despite the opposition, I decided to sell the house. "You can't stay here anymore. If you don't want the facility, you'll need to find another place," I told Catherine. "How dare you decide this on your own? I won't allow you to sell the house." Catherine resisted the idea, but it was a difficult request to ignore. Lily and I had already decided to move to Europe. Bob regretted not being more present for his family and wanted to be there for us moving forward. Although I was hesitant about living abroad, knowing Bob would be with us reassured me. Plus, Lily is only 2, and it would be beneficial for her to learn and grow in Europe. Therefore, selling the condo, which still had a mortgage, was the only viable option. If we left it as it was, Catherine would have to cover the mortgage, but her fixed income wouldn't suffice. Given her future prospects, it was crucial for someone to assist her. Despite our efforts, Catherine refused to move into a facility voluntarily, so we had no choice but to arrange for her to be placed there forcefully. "I'm sorry, but I have to head back to Europe. Could you handle any necessary procedures here?" Bob asked before leaving. With the help of others, I managed to finalize Catherine's admission into the facility. The staff there kept me informed about her condition, but unfortunately, she wasn't doing well. It would be one thing if she were simply feeling down, but it seemed she was causing trouble for the staff and other residents. Before heading to Europe, I visited her to check on her well-being. However, she lashed out at me, accusing me of locking her up in the facility. She also complained to the staff about the food, comfort of the beds, and other residents' behavior, expressing frustration and dissatisfaction. When I apologized to the staff for Catherine's behavior, they were very understanding. "It's okay," one of them assured me. "We're used to dealing with this kind of behavior. Just leave it to us. We'll keep you updated, and if anything happens, we'll give you a call, so don't worry." Despite all the trouble Catherine caused me while we lived together, I couldn't help but feel concerned as I headed to Europe. When I arrived in Paris, Bob met me at the airport, and we went to the apartment we had rented. Rents in Paris are known to be higher than in Texas, but thanks to the housing allowance from Bob's company, we were lucky to find a spacious and affordable place. Living in Paris has been a delightful experience for me and Lily. Our neighbors are incredibly friendly, even though I'm still learning French. Recently, one neighbor shared wine and cheese with me, and I returned the favor with mac and cheese. I'm slowly learning French, and Lily is picking it up too. I've enrolled in a language school to improve further, where I've made friends with other Americans new to France. In the past, I had to constantly worry about Catherine back in the States, which often stopped me from fully enjoying outings with friends. But here in Paris, I can relax and enjoy leisurely lunches. My main concern now is Lily, who is still too young for kindergarten. Most kids in France start kindergarten at 5, so I hope she learns enough French by then. Luckily, Lily seems to be learning quickly. Once Lily starts preschool, I'm considering getting a job. Bob is supportive of me staying at home, but being in Paris has made me want to explore new opportunities. I've made friends with a waitress at a nearby cafe who hinted there might be a job for me there. The cafe is popular among Americans and locals learning English, so it could be a great fit. While there may be challenges ahead, living in France has strengthened our family bonds. I feel more confident expressing myself, and I believe we'll face any challenges together as a family. Overall, I've never been happier in my life.
The attic was suffocating, its musty air thick with secrets. I wiped sweat from my brow, my hands trembling as I lifted the lid of an old trunk. Nestled among yellowed newspapers and faded photographs, a bundle of letters caught my eye. The handwriting was unfamiliar, delicate yet urgent. "Rachel, are you still up there?" Dominic's voice floated up from below. I hesitated, my fingers grazing the frayed edges of the envelopes. "Just a minute," I called back, my heart racing. Quickly, I stuffed the letters into my pocket and closed the trunk. As I descended the rickety ladder, Dominic appeared at the bottom, his brow furrowed. "What were you doing up there?" he asked, a hint of suspicion in his tone. I forced a smile. Just looking for some old baby clothes. Thought we might be able to use them for Grace. Dominic's face softened. Oh, right. Good idea. He glanced at his watch. The boys will be home soon. I need to head out for a bit. Can you handle dinner? I nodded, grateful for the distraction. Of course. Go ahead. As soon as the front door closed behind him, I rushed to the kitchen and pulled out the letters with shaking hands. The return address bore the name Sarah Harper, Dominic's late wife. The first letter was dated 5 years ago, just months before Sarah's death. I began to read, my breath catching in my throat. Dear Lucy and Ian, I'm writing to you in desperation. Things have gotten worse, and I fear for the boys' safety. Dominic's temper is out of control, and his parents enable his behavior. Please, I need your help. The sound of the front door opening startled me. I quickly shoved the letters back into my pocket as Ethan, my 15-year-old stepson, walked into the kitchen. Hey, he mumbled, barely making eye contact. Hi, Ethan, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. How was school? He shrugged, heading for the fridge. Fine. I watched him, my mind reeling from what I'd just read. Was it possible? Had Dominic been abusive to Sarah? To the boys? Where's Dad? Ethan asked, breaking into my thoughts. He had to run out for a bit, I replied. He'll be back for dinner. Ethan nodded, then paused, studying my face. Are you okay? You look kind of pale. I forced another smile. I'm fine, just a little tired. Pregnancy, you know? His eyes flickered to my swollen belly, then back to my face. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of concern in his usually guarded expression. The front door opened again, and 12-year-old Max bounded in, all energy and smiles. Rachel, can we have pizza for dinner? I laughed, grateful for the distraction. Not tonight, buddy. How about spaghetti? As I busied myself with dinner preparations, my mind raced. What other secrets did those letters hold? And what was I going to do with this information? The sound of a car in the driveway made my stomach clench. Dominic was home. I heard his parents' voices as well. Beverly and Carl must have come for dinner. Rachel? Beverly's shrill voice called out. Where are you hiding? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the evening ahead. As I turned to greet them, my hand unconsciously went to my pocket, feeling the weight of Sarah's letters against my hip. In the kitchen! I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. Whatever these letters revealed, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing in this family would ever be the same again. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, my hands resting on my swollen belly. 6 months pregnant, and I still couldn't believe it. A mix of joy and anxiety swirled inside me, much like the baby kicking beneath my palms. Rachel? Max's voice called from the hallway. Can I come in? I opened the door to find my younger stepson, his face bright with excitement. Look what I made in art class, he thrust a clay figurine towards me. It's beautiful, Max, I said, admiring the misshapen but lovingly crafted sculpture. Is it for the baby? He nodded eagerly. Do you think she'll like it? She'll love it, I assured him, ruffling his hair. Max's acceptance had been a balm to my soul these past months, a stark contrast to Ethan's cold shoulder. As if summoned by my thoughts, Ethan appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of indifference. Dad wants to know if dinner's ready, I sighed, glancing at my watch. I'll be down in a minute. Can you set the table, please? Ethan shrugged and turned away without a word. Max gave me an apologetic look before scampering after his brother. Downstairs, I found Dominic in his study, buried in paperwork. Honey, I said, knocking gently on the open door. Dinner's almost ready. He looked up, distracted. Oh, right. I'll be there in a sec. I hesitated, then plunged ahead. I was thinking, maybe we could tell the boys about the baby tonight? Dominic's brow furrowed. Are you sure that's a good idea? Ethan's still adjusting to everything. It's been over a year, Dominic, I said, frustration creeping into my voice. And I'm showing. We can't keep it a secret much longer. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Fine, we'll tell them after dinner. The meal was a tense affair, with Ethan pushing food around his plate and Max trying to fill the silence with chatter about school. As we cleared the dishes, Dominic cleared his throat. Boys, Rachel and I have some news, he began. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. Max looked between us, curiosity written across his face. We're going to have a baby, I said, my hand instinctively moving to my belly. You're going to have a little sister. Max's face lit up. Really? That's awesome. He jumped up to hug me, nearly knocking me off balance. Ethan, however, remained stone-faced. "Congratulations," he said flatly, pushing back from the table. "May I be excused?" "Ethan, wait," Dominic called, but the boy was already halfway up the stairs. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. "I'll go talk to him," I said, but Dominic shook his head. "Let him cool off. I'll handle it later." But later never seemed to come with Dominic. As the weeks passed, the tension in the house grew thicker. Ethan retreated further into himself, while Max's excitement about the baby only seemed to widen the rift between the brothers. One afternoon I found myself alone in the house, the weight of Sarah's letters heavy in my mind. I hadn't dared read more since that first day, but now, with silence pressing in around me, I couldn't resist. I retrieved the bundle from its hiding place and began to read. Sarah's words painted a picture of a family in crisis. Dominic's temper, his parents' interference, her growing fear for her children's well-being. Tears streamed down my face as I read the final letter, dated just days before Sarah's death. "If anything happens to me," she wrote, "please, Lucy and Ian, take care of my boys. Don't let them forget that they're loved." The sound of the front door slamming jolted me back to reality. I quickly hid the letters as Ethan stormed into the kitchen. "Ethan?" I called, my voice shaky. "Is everything okay?" He whirled to face me, his eyes blazing with a mix of anger and pain I'd never seen before. "Why do you care?" he spat. "You're not my mother. You're just the woman who's trying to replace her." His words hit me like a physical blow. As he stormed upstairs, I sank into a chair, one hand on my belly, the other clutching Sarah's letters. In that moment, I realized that the family I'd thought I was joining was built on a foundation of secrets and pain, and I was caught right in the middle of it all. The doorbell chimed, and my heart sank. Beverly and Carl were early as usual. I smoothed my dress over my 8-month belly and plastered on a smile. "Rachel, darling!" Beverly's saccharine voice grated on my nerves as she swept into the house. "My, you're looking robust." I bit back a retort. "Hello, Beverly. Carl, please, come in." Carl grunted, eyeing me critically. "Where's Dominic?" "Still at work," I replied, leading them to the living room. "He should be home soon." Beverly sked. "Working so late with a baby on the way? I hope you're not putting too much pressure on him, Rachel." I clenched my jaw. "Dominic makes his own choices." "Of course he does," Beverly said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Now, where are my grandsons?" As if on cue, Max bounded down the stairs. "Grandma! Grandpa!" He hugged them both, then turned to me. "Rachel, can I show them the nursery?" Before I could answer, Beverly interjected. "Oh, you've been helping with the nursery? How sweet. I'm sure Rachel appreciates any help she can get, being so inexperienced." I saw Max's face fall slightly. "Actually," I said, forcing my voice to remain calm, "Max has been a huge help. He's got quite an eye for design." Beverly's lips thinned. "Well, isn't that lovely? Carl, why don't you go with Max? I'd like to have a little chat with Rachel." My stomach clenched as Carl and Max headed upstairs. Beverly turned to me, her eyes cold. "Rachel, dear, we need to discuss your influence on this family." I steeled myself. "What do you mean, Beverly?" "Well," she began, her voice sickly sweet, "we've noticed some changes since you arrived. Ethan's become so withdrawn, and now Max is playing interior decorator. It's just not natural." "Not natural?" I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. "Dominic tells us you're encouraging the boys to express themselves," she continued. "That's not how we raised Dominic. Men in this family are strong, not emotional." I felt my temper rising. "And look how well that turned out," I snapped before I could stop myself. Beverly's eyes widened. "I beg your pardon?" The front door opened, saving me from having to respond. Dominic walked in, looking tired. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he asked, confusion evident in his voice. Beverly's demeanor changed instantly. "Oh, honey, we just came to check on you all. We're worried about the stress you're under." Dominic's brow furrowed. "What stress?" Beverly glanced pointedly at my belly. "Well, with the baby coming and Rachel clearly struggling to manage the household." "I'm not struggling," I interjected, but Dominic was already nodding. "It has been tough," he admitted, "but we're managing." I stared at him, hurt and anger warring inside me. "Dominic, can I speak with you in the kitchen?" Once alone, I rounded on him. "Why didn't you tell me your parents were coming?" He shrugged. "I forgot. What's the big deal?" "The big deal," I hissed, "is that your mother just spent the last 10 minutes criticizing everything about our life." Dominic sighed. "Rachel, You're overreacting. That's just how Mom is. And you just let her talk to me like that? I felt tears pricking at my eyes. Look, he said, his voice taking on an edge I'd never heard before. My parents are important to me. If you can't handle them, maybe you need to try harder. I stepped back, shocked. Try harder? Dominic, I've been trying since the day I moved in. But your parents hate me. Ethan can barely look at me, and you don't even see what's happening. What's happening, he growled, is that you're turning my family against me. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I opened my mouth to respond, but a sharp pain in my abdomen made me gasp instead. Dominic's anger morphed into concern. Rachel? What's wrong? I clutched my belly, panic rising. I think the baby's coming. As Dominic rushed to call the hospital, I leaned against the counter, breathing heavily. Through the haze of pain, one thought crystallized in my mind. Something had to change, and soon. For my sake, for the boy's sake, and now, for my daughter's sake, too. The shrill cry of Grace pierced the early morning silence, jolting me awake. I stumbled out of bed, exhaustion weighing heavily on my bones. It had been 3 months since her dramatic arrival, and I felt like I hadn't slept since. As I cradled Grace, trying to soothe her, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, hair a mess, and clothes that hadn't been changed in days. I barely recognized myself. Rachel? Dominic's voice called from downstairs. My parents are here. Can you come down? I froze, panic rising in my chest. Beverly and Carl were here? Now? I looked down at Grace, finally quiet, then back at my disheveled reflection. There was no time to make myself presentable. Descending the stairs, I could hear Beverly's voice, sharp and critical. Really, Dominic, the house is a mess. I thought Rachel was supposed to be taking care of things. I stepped into the living room, Grace in my arms. Good morning, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Beverly's eyes widened as she took in my appearance. Oh my, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. Rachel, dear, you look, well, I suppose new motherhood isn't easy for everyone. I felt my cheeks burn with shame and anger. I'm doing my best, I said through gritted teeth. Carl grunted. Doesn't look like much of a best to me. I looked to Dominic, silently pleading for support, but he avoided my gaze. Mom, Dad, why don't we go out for breakfast? He suggested. Give Rachel some time to get things in order. The implication stung. As they left, I sank onto the couch, tears threatening to spill over. Grace began to fuss again, and I felt utterly overwhelmed. Suddenly, Ethan appeared in the doorway. His eyes darted between me and the baby, a mix of concern and uncertainty on his face. Are you okay? He asked hesitantly. I tried to smile, but it felt more like a grimace. I'm fine, Ethan, just tired. He shifted uncomfortably. I could hold her for a bit, if you want to shower or something. His offer caught me off guard. You'd do that? Ethan shrugged. Yeah, I guess. I mean, she is my sister. Gratitude washed over me as I carefully transferred Grace to Ethan's arms. As I headed upstairs, I heard him talking softly to her, and for a moment, hope flickered in my chest. But reality came crashing back when I returned to find Dominic and his parents had returned. Beverly was holding Grace, cooing at her while shooting pointed looks in my direction. There you are, Rachel, she said. We were just discussing how you might need some help. Perhaps a nanny? I bristled. We don't need a nanny. I can take care of my own child. Beverly's smile was cold. Of course, dear, but with the house in such a state and you looking so worn out, we're just concerned. We? I looked at Dominic, who shifted uncomfortably. Rachel, he began, his tone placating, maybe Mom has a point. You have been struggling lately. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Struggling? Dominic, I've been doing everything, taking care of Grace, the boys, the house, while I what? Dominic's voice took on a dangerous edge. While I worked to support this family? The room fell silent, tension thick in the air. Even Beverly looked taken aback by Dominic's tone. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I thought of Sarah's letters, hidden away. I thought of Ethan's small act of kindness, and I thought of my daughter, who deserved better than this toxic environment. You know what? I said, my voice low and steady. You're right. I do need help, but not from a nanny, and certainly not from you. I turned to Ethan, who was watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. Ethan, can you take Grace upstairs, please? As Ethan left with the baby, I faced Dominic and his parents. This ends now, I declared. I'm done being the scapegoat for this family's problems. Either things change, or I'm leaving, and I'm taking my daughter with me. The shock on their faces would have been satisfying if I wasn't trembling inside. But as I stood there, chin held high, I knew I had reached a turning point. Whatever came next, I was ready to fight for myself and my children. All of them. The fluorescent lights of the office buzzed overhead, matching the constant thrum of anxiety in my chest. I stared at the computer screen, the words blurring before my eyes. My head pounded, a dull ache that had become my constant companion. "Rachel?" My colleague Sarah peered over the cubicle wall. "Are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a bit tired. Grace had a rough night." Sarah's brow furrowed with concern. "You've been just tired for weeks now. Maybe you should see a doctor?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. "Mom and Dad coming for dinner. Don't forget to pick up Grace from daycare." My stomach churned. Another evening of criticism and tension. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. "Rachel?" Sarah's voice seemed distant. "Rachel, you're shaking." I opened my eyes to find the room spinning. Suddenly, the floor rushed up to meet me. I came to on a couch in the break room, surrounded by concerned faces. Our HR manager, Linda, knelt beside me. "Rachel, we've called an ambulance. You fainted," she explained gently. Panic surged through me. "No, I can't go to the hospital. I have to pick up Grace and dinner." "Your health comes first," Linda insisted. "We've contacted your husband. He's on his way to the hospital." The next few hours passed in a blur of tests and questions. When the doctor finally entered my room, his expression was grave. "Mrs. Harper, your blood pressure is dangerously high. You're showing signs of severe stress and exhaustion. If you don't make some significant changes, you're at risk for serious complications." I nodded numbly, barely registering his words. All I could think about was Grace and the boys and the mountain of tasks waiting for me at home. The door burst open, and Dominic rushed in, followed closely by Beverly and Carl. My heart sank at the sight of them. "Rachel, what happened?" Dominic demanded. "Why didn't you tell me you were sick?" Before I could answer, Beverly chimed in. "I knew she couldn't handle it all." "Dominic, this is what happens when you let a career woman try to run a household." Anger flared within me, cutting through the fog of exhaustion. "Excuse me?" Carl grunted. "Face it, girl, you bit off more than you could chew. It's time to admit you need help." I looked to Dominic, silently pleading for support, but he avoided my gaze. "Maybe they're right, Rachel. You're clearly overwhelmed." Something inside me snapped. "Overwhelmed? Of course I'm overwhelmed. I'm working full-time, taking care of an infant and 2 teenagers, managing a household, and dealing with constant criticism from your parents. And where have you been, Dominic? Where's your support?" The room fell silent. Dominic's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "That's not fair, Rachel. I work hard to provide for this family." "And I don't?" I shot back. "When was the last time you got up for a 3 a.m. feeding, or helped with homework, or stood up to your parents when they belittle me?" Beverly gasped. "How dare you speak to him like that? After everything we've done for you." "Enough!" I shouted, surprising even myself. "I'm done. I'm done trying to please everyone while sacrificing my own health and happiness." I turned to Dominic, my voice shaking but resolute. "Things need to change, Dominic. Either we get counseling and you start setting boundaries with your parents, or what?" Dominic's voice was dangerously low. I took a deep breath, the weight of my next words hanging in the air. "Or I'm leaving, and I'm taking Grace with me." The stunned silence that followed was broken only by the steady beep of the heart monitor. In that moment, staring into Dominic's shocked face, I knew there was no going back. Whatever came next, I had to prioritize my health and my children's well-being. The time for compromise was over. Now, it was time to fight. I stood in the kitchen, mechanically stirring a pot of soup, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The house was eerily quiet. Dominic had taken Grace to his parents for the day, a thinly veiled attempt to give me a break after my hospital scare. But the silence only amplified my inner turmoil. A soft knock on the doorframe startled me. I turned to see Ethan hovering uncertainly in the doorway. "Rachel?" His voice was hesitant. "Can we talk?" I nodded, surprised. "Of course. Come in." Ethan sat at the kitchen table, fidgeting with a folded piece of paper. I found something in Dad's study." My heart raced as he unfolded the paper. It was a letter, the handwriting achingly familiar, Sarah's handwriting. It's from my mom, Ethan said, his voice cracking. She wrote it right before she died. I think you should read it. With trembling hands, I took the letter. As I read, Sarah's words burned into my mind. Dominic, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I can't take it anymore. The anger, the control, the fear. I'm leaving and I'm taking the boys with me. Your parents have poisoned our family for too long. I won't let them do to our children what they did to you. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. Please find help, break the cycle, for our boys' sake. I looked up at Ethan, tears blurring my vision. Oh, Ethan, I'm so sorry. She never got to leave. The accident, it wasn't an accident, was it? The weight of this revelation crashed over me. Suddenly everything, Dominic's temper, his parents' interference, the boy's pain clicked into horrifying focus. Ethan, I said, my voice shaking, I need you to listen to me. What's happening in this family isn't right. It wasn't right for your mother, and it's not right for us now. Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. I know, I've known for a while. I didn't know what to do. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. I'm going to leave your father, and I want to take you, Max, and Grace with me. Ethan's eyes widened. You do that? Even for us? Of course, I said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. You're my family too, Ethan. All of you. Just then we heard the front door open. Dominic's voice called out, Rachel, we're home. Panic flashed across Ethan's face. I quickly folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket. It's okay, I whispered. We'll figure this out. Dominic appeared in the doorway, Grace in his arms. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene before him. What's going on here? I stood up, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. Dominic, we need to talk about everything. His face darkened. Everything? What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, that I know about Sarah, about what really happened, and I'm not going to let history repeat itself. The color drained from Dominic's face. He set Grace down, his movements suddenly jerky and aggressive. You don't know anything, he snarled. I know enough, I shot back, and I'm done pretending. This ends now, Dominic, for all our sakes. Ethan stood up, moving to stand beside me. She's right, Dad. We can't keep living like this. Dominic's eyes darted between us, a cornered animal. You're turning my own son against me? He growled, taking a step forward. I instinctively pushed Ethan behind me, shielding him. No, Dominic. You did that all on your own. As Dominic advanced, rage contorting his features, I realized with crystal clarity that this was the moment everything would change. There was no going back now. Whatever came next, I had to be ready to fight. Not just for myself, but for all 4 children who were counting on me. With one hand reaching for Grace and the other holding Ethan's arm, I braced myself for the storm that was about to break. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. I want a divorce, Dominic. His face contorted with rage, a vein pulsing in his forehead. You what? I stood my ground, heart racing but voice steady. You heard me. I'm leaving and I'm taking the children with me. Dominic's laugh was cold, mirthless. You think you can just walk away? Take my kids? Our kids, I corrected. And yes, I can. I will. His eyes darted to Ethan, who stood beside me, then to Max, who had appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Boys, Dominic said, his voice dangerously calm. Go to your rooms, now. Neither moved. Max spoke up, his voice trembling but determined. No, Dad. We're staying with Rachel. Dominic's facade cracked. What did you say to them? He snarled at me. How dare you turn my own children against me? We made our own choice, Ethan said. We know what you did to Mom, what you've been doing to all of us. The color drained from Dominic's face. You don't know anything, he hissed. We know enough, I said, pulling Sarah's letter from my pocket. And so will the police if you try to stop us. Dominic lunged forward, but Ethan stepped between us. Don't touch her, he warned. For a moment, I saw a flicker of shock in Dominic's eyes, as if truly seeing his son for the first time. Then his expression hardened. Fine, he spat. Leave, but don't think this is over. As we hurried to pack essentials, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Lucy Miller. We need to talk. My heart skipped a beat. Ethan and Max's maternal grandparents, the ones Dominic had kept away for years. I quickly replied, arranging to meet them. Hours later, we sat in a quiet cafe, the boys reuniting tearfully with their grandparents. Lucy clutched my hand. Thank you, she whispered. We've been trying to reach them for so long. Ian's face was grim. We always suspected something was wrong, but Dominic kept us away, said we were a bad influence. He was the bad influence, Max said bitterly. Him and his parents. A chill ran down my spine. His parents, I repeated. Oh God, Beverly and Carl, they'll be furious when they find out. As if on cue, my phone exploded with notifications. Missed calls from Beverly, threatening texts from Carl, and a voicemail from Dominic that made my blood run cold. You think you've won? His voice slurred, clearly drunk. This isn't over. I'll take everything from you. The kids, the house, everything. You'll regret the day you crossed me, Rachel. I looked up at the concerned faces around me. We need to go, I said urgently. It's not safe here anymore. Lucy squeezed my hand. Come stay with us. We have plenty of room and Dominic doesn't know where we live. As we drove to Lucy and Ian's house, my mind raced. How had it come to this? Running from the man I once loved with 4 children depending on me? Ethan's voice broke into my thoughts. Rachel, are we going to be okay? I met his eyes in the rearview mirror, seeing the fear and hope battling there. I thought of Sarah's letter, of the years of abuse and manipulation, of the strength it took to break free. Yes, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. We're going to be okay. It won't be easy, but we're together now, and we're going to fight for the life we deserve. As we pulled up to Lucy and Ian's house, I saw Beverly and Carl's car parked across the street. My heart plummeted. How had they found us so quickly? Stay in the car? I told the children, my voice tight with fear. Lock the doors. I'll handle this. As I stepped out to face my in-laws, I knew this was it, the moment that would define our future. Everything was at stake, and I had to be ready for whatever came next. I stood on the porch, my heart pounding as Beverly and Carl approached. Behind me, I could hear Lucy and Ian ushering the children inside. Where do you think you're going with our grandchildren? Beverly's shrill voice cut through the air. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. They're safe, Beverly. That's all that matters. Carl's face reddened. You have no right to take them, Dominic. Dominic lost that right, I interrupted, my voice steady. And so did you. Just then, a car screeched to a halt behind them. Dominic stumbled out, his eyes wild with rage. You, he snarled, pointing at me. You've ruined everything. As he lurched towards me, Ethan burst out of the house, placing himself between us. Stop right there, Dad, he warned. Dominic froze, shock momentarily replacing anger. Ethan, what are you doing? Protecting my family, Ethan replied, his voice trembling but resolute. The way you never did. Beverly gasped. How dare you speak to your father that way? No, I said, stepping forward. How dare you all treat these children like possessions instead of people? How dare you continue the cycle of abuse that nearly destroyed Sarah? Carl's face paled. What are you talking about? I pulled out Sarah's letter, my hands shaking. I know everything. About Sarah's plan to leave, about the accident that wasn't an accident, and so do the police. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Dominic's face contorted with fury and fear. You bitch, he spat. You'll pay for this. He lunged forward, but Ethan was quicker. In a move that spoke of years of pent-up anger, he shoved his father back. Dominic stumbled, falling hard on the pavement. As the police cars pulled up, everything seemed to move in slow motion. Officers swarmed around us, separating Dominic and his parents from the rest of us. I watched as they were handcuffed and read their rights, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. Max appeared at my side, slipping his hand into mine. Is it over? He asked, his voice small. I squeezed his hand. Yes, sweetheart, it's over. Hours later, after statements had been given and plans set in motion, we sat in Lucy and Ian's living room. Grace slept peacefully in my arms, while Ethan and Max leaned against me on either side. What happens now? Ethan asked, his voice heavy with exhaustion. I looked around at the faces of our newfound family, Lucy and Ian, beaming with joy at being reunited with their grandsons, the boys, finally free from the weight of secrets and fear, and little Grace, innocent and unaware of the seismic shift in our world. Now, I said, my voice thick with emotion, we heal. We build a new life, one filled with love and honesty and support. Lucy reached out, squeezing my hand. You're not alone in this, Rachel. We're all here for you and the children. I felt tears welling up, but for the first time in years they were tears of relief and hope. Thank you, I whispered. All of you, for being brave, for standing up for what's right. As the evening wore on, plans were made. Lucy and Ian offered us a place to stay until we could get back on our feet. We talked about therapy, about legal proceedings, about rebuilding our lives. Later that night, as I tucked the children into bed, Ethan caught my hand. "Rachel," he said softly, "I'm sorry I was so hard on you before. You saved us, just like Mom tried to do." I felt my heart swell with love and pride. "Oh, Ethan," I said, pulling him into a hug, "you saved us too. We all did together." As I closed their bedroom door, I paused in the hallway, overwhelmed by the events of the day. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I felt hope blooming in my chest. We had broken free from the cycle of abuse and silence. We had chosen love over fear, truth over lies, and in doing so, we had found not just safety, but a true family, one built on trust, respect, and unconditional love. As I settled into bed, exhausted but at peace, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our journey of healing had only just begun, but we were finally on the right path, and that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. The leather-bound diary felt heavy in my hands, its pages filled with secrets I was never meant to know. I stood frozen in Mary's pristine guest room, my heart pounding as I read the words scrawled in her elegant handwriting. "That insufferable Anna," the entry began. "How Daniel could have chosen her is beyond me. She'll never be good enough for this family." I slammed the book shut, my hands trembling. How long had my mother-in-law harbored such resentment towards me? And more importantly, what was I going to do about it? The sound of a car pulling into the driveway jolted me back to reality. I quickly shoved the diary back into the drawer where I'd found it and rushed downstairs, plastering on a smile as Daniel walked through the door. "Hey, honey," he said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "How was your day with Mom?" I hesitated, the weight of my discovery pressing down on me. "Oh, you know, the usual." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That bad, huh?" Before I could respond, Mary's voice rang out from the kitchen. "Daniel, darling, is that you?" She bustled into the room, all smiles and warmth for her son. The contrast between her demeanor now and the vitriol I just read in her diary made my head spin. "Anna, be a dear and set the table, would you?" Mary said, barely sparing me a glance. I gritted my teeth. "Of course, Mary." As I laid out the plates and silverware, I could hear Mary and Daniel chatting animatedly in the kitchen. My mind raced, trying to process what I'd learned. How could I confront her without seeming like I'd invaded her privacy? And would Daniel even believe me if I told him? "Anna." Mary's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "We're ready to eat. Do try to keep up, dear." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was sure to be an uncomfortable dinner. As we sat down, Mary launched into a story about her bridge club, completely ignoring my presence. "Oh, and Daniel," she said, her eyes sparkling, "I ran into Olivia at the supermarket today. She and Liam are coming over for brunch on Sunday. Isn't that lovely?" Daniel nodded, his mouth full of pot roast. I felt a familiar pang of jealousy at the mention of my sister-in-law. Olivia could do no wrong in Mary's eyes, a fact that was driven home by what I'd read in the diary. "That sounds great, Mom," Daniel said. "Anna and I would love to join you." Mary's smile faltered for just a moment. "Oh, I'm not sure there will be enough room at the table. Perhaps Anna could visit her own family that day." The room fell silent. I stared at my plate, willing myself not to cry or scream. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom, that's not fair. Anna is part of this family, too." Of course," Mary backpedaled smoothly. "I just thought she might prefer to spend time with her parents. You know how close they are." I couldn't take it anymore. "Actually, Mary," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I'd love to join you for brunch. After all, we're family, right?" The look she gave me could have curdled milk. "Of course, dear. How thoughtful of you." As the tension in the room reached a breaking point, Samuel, my father-in-law, walked in, oblivious to the drama unfolding. "Sorry I'm late, everyone," he said cheerfully. "What did I miss?" I caught Mary's eye across the table, and in that moment I knew. This was war, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The diary may have been the first shot fired, but it certainly wouldn't be the last. As we finished dinner in strained silence, I made a decision. I would find a way to expose Mary's true nature, no matter what it took. The question was, how far was I willing to go to protect my place in this family? Sunday morning arrived with a knot of dread in my stomach. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down my dress and wondering if it was too much for a simple family brunch. But with Mary, nothing was ever simple. "You look beautiful," Daniel said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Ready to go?" I forced a smile. "As I'll ever be." The drive to Mary and Samuel's house was tense, filled with my unspoken worries about the diary and Daniel's oblivious chatter about work. As we pulled into the driveway, I spotted Liam's car already parked. "Looks like we're the last to arrive," I muttered. Daniel squeezed my hand. "It'll be fine, Anna. Just relax." If only he knew. The moment we stepped through the door, Mary descended upon us like a perfectly coiffed vulture. "Daniel, darling," she exclaimed, enveloping him in a hug. Her eyes slid past me as if I were invisible. Come in, come in. Olivia's just made the most delightful quiche." I trailed behind them into the dining room, where Liam and Olivia were already seated. Olivia stood up, her pregnancy bump now clearly visible beneath her flowing top. "Anna," she said, hugging me warmly, "it's so good to see you." For a moment, I felt a flicker of genuine affection. Then I caught Mary's expression. A mixture of adoration for Olivia and thinly veiled contempt for me. "Olivia, dear," Mary cooed, "you simply must tell Anna your wonderful news." Olivia beamed. "We're having twins. Can you believe it?" The room erupted in excited chatter, but I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Twins, of course, because Olivia wasn't just perfect, she was doubly perfect. "That's amazing," I managed to choke out. As we sat down to eat, the conversation revolved entirely around Olivia's pregnancy. I pushed my food around my plate, feeling increasingly invisible. "Anna," Mary's sharp voice cut through my thoughts, "you're awfully quiet. Nothing to contribute?" I looked up to find everyone staring at me. I'm just happy for Liam and Olivia," I said weakly. Mary's smile was razor thin. "Of course you are, dear. It must be difficult, though, watching someone else live out your dreams." The table fell silent. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Mom," he started, but I cut him off. "What exactly do you mean by that, Mary?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, nothing, dear. It's just that some women are natural mothers, while others, well, perhaps it's for the best that nature takes its course." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table, fighting back tears of rage and humiliation. "Mary," Samuel said warningly, but she ignored him. "I only mean that Olivia has such a maternal instinct," Mary continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's clear she was born for this role, unlike some people who might struggle with the demands of motherhood." That was it, the last straw. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Anna?" Daniel looked up at me, confused. "I need some air," I muttered, fleeing the room. I found myself in Mary's study, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the drawer where I'd found the diary. I needed proof, something to show Daniel that his mother wasn't the saint he thought she was. "What are you doing?" I whirled around to find Olivia standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with concern. I started, but the words caught in my throat. Olivia stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "Anna, there's something you need to know," she said quietly. "About Mary. About all of us." My heart pounded. Was this it? The moment when everything would finally come to light? "What is it?" I whispered. Olivia took a deep breath. "Mary isn't who you think she is, and neither am I." My mind reeled from Olivia's revelation. Before I could press her for more details, a sharp knock on the study door made us both jump. "Anna? Olivia? Are you in there?" It was Daniel's voice, tinged with concern. Olivia shot me a panicked look. "We'll talk later," she whispered, then called out, "Coming, Daniel." As we rejoined the others, my thoughts were a jumbled mess. What did Olivia mean? And how was I going to confront Daniel about the diary? The rest of brunch passed in a blur. I barely tasted the food, my mind racing with possibilities. As we said our goodbyes, Mary's saccharine smile made my skin crawl. "Do come again soon, dears," she cooed, kissing Daniel's cheek. Her eyes met mine, cold and challenging. "We have so much to catch up on." The drive home was silent, tension thick in the air. Finally, as we pulled into our driveway, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Daniel, we need to talk about your mother." He sighed, turning off the engine. "Anna, please, not this again." "No, you need to listen to me," I insisted, my voice rising. "I found something when we were at your parents' house last week, your mother's diary." Daniel's face darkened. "You went through her personal things?" "It was an accident," I said quickly. "But Daniel, the things she wrote about me, she hates me. She always has." He shook his head, disbelief etched across his features. That's ridiculous. My mother loves you. She's always been nothing but kind to you. I laughed bitterly. Kind? Did you not hear what she said at brunch today about me not being cut out for motherhood? She didn't mean it like that, Daniel said, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. She did, Daniel, and there's more, so much more. I took a deep breath. Your mother, she's not who you think she is. Daniel's jaw clenched. What are you talking about? I can't explain it all right now, but Olivia knows something too. She tried to tell me today, but we were interrupted. This is insane, Daniel muttered, running a hand through his hair. You're reading too much into things, Anna. My mother would never... Never what? I snapped. Lie? Manipulate? Open your eyes, Daniel. She's been doing it for years. He got out of the car abruptly, slamming the door behind him. I scrambled to follow him into the house. Daniel, please, I begged, grabbing his arm. Just listen to me. He whirled around, his eyes flashing with anger. No, you listen to me, Anna. I've had enough of this. My mother has been nothing but welcoming to you since the day we met. If anyone's causing problems in this family, it's you. His words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back, tears welling in my eyes. You don't mean that, I whispered. Daniel's expression softened slightly, but the anger was still there. I'm going for a walk. I need to clear my head. As the front door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, sobs racking my body. How had everything gone so wrong? My phone buzzed in my pocket. With shaking hands, I pulled it out to see a text from an unknown number. Anna, it's Olivia. We need to meet. Alone. There's so much you don't know. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., at the coffee shop on Main Street. Please come. It's about Mary and Daniel. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Whatever Olivia knew, it was clear that this went deeper than I could have imagined. As I heard Daniel's key in the lock, I quickly deleted the message. He walked in, his face a mask of exhaustion and conflicting emotions. Anna. It's okay, I cut him off, forcing a smile. Let's just forget about it for now. But as we went through the motions of a normal evening, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. Tomorrow, I would meet Olivia and finally uncover the truth. And then, one way or another, this family would never be the same again. The coffee shop bustled with afternoon patrons as I scanned the room for Olivia. My hands shook slightly, clutching my phone with Daniel's latest text. Where are you? Mom's trying to reach you about Dad's retirement party. I spotted Olivia in a corner booth, her face pale and drawn. As I slid in across from her, she glanced nervously around the room. Anna, thank you for coming, she whispered. I don't have much time. Mary thinks I'm at a doctor's appointment. Olivia, what's going on? What do you know about Mary and Daniel? She took a deep breath. Mary isn't Daniel's biological mother. She adopted him when he was a baby. His real mother was Mary's sister. The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the edge of the table, struggling to process this bombshell. But how? Why doesn't Daniel know? Olivia's eyes welled with tears. Mary swore everyone to secrecy. She was desperate for a child, and when her sister got pregnant out of wedlock, it was the perfect solution. But Mary's obsession with being the perfect mother has turned into this. My mind raced. Does Liam know? She nodded. He found out just before we got married. Mary made him promise never to tell. It's been eating him alive. And you're telling me this now because I can't stand by and watch Mary destroy your marriage like she almost destroyed mine, Olivia said fiercely. She's planning something, Anna. Something big. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Mary. Anna, dear, her saccharine voice dripped through the speaker. I hope you're free this Saturday at 7 p.m. for Samuel's retirement party. We're so looking forward to seeing you and Daniel. I froze, remembering the invitation I'd seen on Daniel's desk. I thought, isn't the party at 5? Mary's laugh was like ice. Oh no, dear, it's definitely at 7. I wouldn't want you to show up at the wrong time and embarrass yourself. See you then. The call ended abruptly. I looked at Olivia, horror dawning on my face. She's setting me up, I whispered. Olivia nodded grimly. Anna, you need to tell Daniel the truth about everything. He won't believe me, I said, despair creeping in. He thinks I'm the one causing problems. Then make him believe you. Olivia urged. Find proof, the diary, adoption papers, anything. You have to fight back. As we left the coffee shop, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions and half-formed plans. I had to find a way to expose Mary's lies without destroying Daniel in the process. At home, I paced our bedroom, debating my next move. The sound of the front door opening made me jump. "Anna?" Daniel called out. "Are you home?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It was now or never. "Up here," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his face a mix of concern and lingering frustration from our earlier argument. "Where were you?" "Mom's been trying to reach you about Dad's party." I met his gaze, my heart pounding. "Daniel, we need to talk. There's something you need to know about your mother." His expression hardened. "Anna, I thought we were past this." "Please," I begged. "Just hear me out. What I'm about to tell you will change everything, but you need to know the truth." Daniel's eyes searched my face, conflict evident in his features. Finally, he sat down on the edge of the bed. "All right," he said quietly. "I'm listening." I took a deep breath, knowing that the words I was about to speak would shatter the foundation of everything he believed. But as I opened my mouth to reveal Mary's decades-long deception, I realized there was no turning back. The truth, no matter how painful, had to come out. "Daniel," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, "your mother, she's not who you think she is." My heart raced as Daniel and I pulled up to his parents' house. The driveway was already packed with cars, laughter and music spilling out into the evening air. I glanced at my watch, 7:05 p.m. "We're right on time," Daniel said, squeezing my hand. "Ready?" I nodded, trying to quell the nausea rising in my throat. After our conversation about Mary's true nature, Daniel had been quiet and withdrawn. He'd insisted on coming to the party, saying he needed time to process everything. I couldn't shake the feeling that this night would end in disaster. As we approached the front door, it swung open to reveal Mary, resplendent in a glittering evening gown. "Daniel, darling," she exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. Her eyes met mine over his shoulder, cold and triumphant. "And Anna, how lovely of you to join us, eventually." I froze, confusion washing over me. "What do you mean? You told me the party started at 7. Mary's laugh tinkled like broken glass. "Oh, you poor dear, the party started at 5, as stated on the invitation. Didn't Daniel tell you?" I turned to Daniel, who looked bewildered. I thought I mentioned it," he stammered. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Mary had set me up, just as Olivia had warned. And Daniel, despite everything I'd told him, had fallen right into her trap. We entered the crowded living room where all eyes turned to us. Samuel, the guest of honor, approached with a warm smile. "There you are," he said. "We were starting to worry. Anna, dear, I'm afraid we've run out of chairs. Would you mind terribly if Daniel sat here and you found a spot in the kitchen?" I stood there, humiliation burning through me, as I watched Daniel sink into the last available seat. Mary's smug smile from across the room made my blood boil. "Actually," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I think I'll just stand. Wouldn't want to miss any more of the party than I already have." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter went through the room. I caught Olivia's eye, and she gave me a small, encouraging nod. As the night wore on, I found myself pushed further and further to the periphery. Mary held court, regaling everyone with stories of Daniel's childhood and her own sacrifices as a mother. Each anecdote felt like a dagger, knowing the truth behind her facade. Finally, as Mary launched into yet another tale of her maternal devotion, something in me snapped. "That's enough," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent. Mary turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "I beg your pardon." "I said, that's enough," I repeated, stepping forward. "Enough lies, enough manipulation, enough of this whole charade." Daniel stood up, his face pale. "Anna, what are you doing?" I met his gaze, silently pleading with him to understand. Then I turned to face the room full of shocked faces. "There's something you all need to know," I began, my heart pounding. "Mary isn't." Suddenly, Olivia gasped and clutched her stomach. "The babies," she moaned. "Something's wrong." The room erupted into chaos. As Liam rushed to Olivia's side and someone called for an ambulance, I felt a hand grip my arm. It was Mary, her fingers digging into my skin. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot. If you breathe a word of what you know, I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." As she released me, I caught sight of Daniel watching us, his expression unreadable. In that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could back down, let Mary continue her reign of manipulation and lies, or I could take a stand, right here and now, and finally expose the truth, no matter the consequences. With Olivia being rushed to the hospital and the party in shambles, I took a deep breath. It was now or never. "I'm sorry, Mary," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "but I can't keep quiet any longer. It's time everyone knew the truth about who you really are." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on me. Mary's face contorted with rage, while Daniel looked torn between confusion and betrayal. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I found Mary's diary," I began, my voice shaking. "And what I read, it changes everything." Mary lunged forward, her hand outstretched as if to snatch the words from the air. "Anna, stop this nonsense immediately." But I was beyond stopping now. The truth burned in my chest, demanding to be set free. "Mary isn't Daniel's biological mother," I blurted out. "She adopted him as a baby. His real mother was Mary's sister." The room erupted into chaos. Samuel staggered back, his face ashen. Liam, who had been about to follow the ambulance with Olivia, froze in the doorway. And Daniel looked as if his entire world had shattered. "You're lying," he whispered, his eyes pleading with me to take it back. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I wish it wasn't true, but Olivia confirmed it. Your mother has been lying to you your entire life." Mary's scream of rage cut through the commotion. "How dare you!" she shrieked, lunging at me. Daniel caught her arm, holding her back. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking, "is it true?" For a moment, Mary's mask slipped and I saw the desperation in her eyes. Then, just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by cold fury. "Of course not," she spat. "Anna is clearly delusional. She's been trying to turn you against me from the beginning. Can't you see that?" I watched as doubt crept into Daniel's eyes. My heart sank. After everything, was he still going to choose his mother over the truth? "Daniel," I pleaded, "think about it. The diary, the way she's always treated me, the secrets, it all makes sense now." He looked between us, torn. The room held its breath, waiting. Suddenly, Samuel stepped forward. "It's true," he said quietly. "I'm sorry, son. We should have told you long ago." Mary whirled on him. "Samuel, how could you?" "Enough, Mary," he said firmly. "It's time the truth came out." As the full weight of the revelation settled over the room, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The truth was finally out, but at what cost? Daniel stumbled back, his face a mask of pain and betrayal. I need to get out of here," he muttered, pushing past me towards the door. "Daniel, wait!" I called, but he was already gone, the sound of tires screeching in the driveway. I turned back to face Mary, who stood glaring at me with pure hatred. "Are you happy now?" she hissed. "You've destroyed this family." "No, Mary," I replied, finding strength I didn't know I had. "You did that all on your own." As I moved to follow Daniel, Mary's hand shot out, gripping my arm with surprising strength. "This isn't over," she snarled. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." I wrenched my arm free, my heart pounding. "Neither do you," I shot back. Rushing out into the night, I frantically scanned the street for any sign of Daniel's car. But he was gone. My phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. "At hospital, twins okay, false alarm, what happened?" I stared at the screen, the enormity of the night's events crashing over me. In the span of an hour, I had exposed a decades-old family secret, potentially ruined my marriage, and made an enemy of one of the most manipulative women I'd ever met. As I stood there, alone in the dark, I realized that this was far from over. Mary's threat echoed in my mind, and I knew that the real battle was just beginning. But for the first time in years, I felt ready to fight. I took a deep breath and started walking. I had a husband to find, a family to mend, and a truth to defend. Whatever came next, I would face it head on. I found Daniel at our spot by the lake, his silhouette a lonely figure against the moonlit water. As I approached, the crunch of gravel under my feet made him turn. "Anna," he said, his voice hollow, "how did you find me?" "I know you," I replied softly. "I've always known you." He laughed bitterly. "Have you? Because I don't even know myself anymore." I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. The rejection stung, but I pressed on. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I just couldn't bear the lies anymore." "And what about your lies?" he snapped. "You went behind my back, dug through my mother's personal things. How are you any better?" His words hit me like a physical blow. Before I could respond, headlights swept across us. Mary's car screeched to a halt, and she burst out, Samuel close behind. "Daniel!" she cried. "Oh, my darling boy, don't listen to her poisonous lies." Daniel's face contorted with pain. "Is it true?" he demanded. "Are you really not my mother?" Mary's eyes darted between us, calculating. "Of course I'm your mother. I raised you, loved you. That's what being a mother is." "But you didn't give birth to me," Daniel pressed. "Did you?" The silence stretched, taut as a wire about to snap. Then, unexpectedly, another voice cut through the night. "She didn't," Olivia said, stepping out of Liam's car. Despite her ordeal at the hospital, she stood tall, her eyes blazing. "But I can prove who did." Mary lunged at Olivia. "You treacherous little—" "Enough!" Samuel's voice boomed across the lakeside. "Mary, it's over. The truth is out." As if summoned by his words, a police car pulled up, its lights flashing. 2 officers stepped out, their faces grim. "Mary Anderson," one asked, "we have some questions about the adoption of Daniel Anderson and the death of your sister, Sarah Mitchell." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Death? Adoption? I looked at Daniel, seeing my own shock mirrored in his eyes. Mary's composure cracked. "You don't understand," she pleaded. "Sarah was going to ruin everything. She was going to take Daniel away. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't." As the officers led Mary away, her desperate confessions echoing in the night, I felt Daniel sag against me. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling his body shake with silent sobs. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." Olivia approached us, her face etched with guilt and sorrow. "Daniel, Anna, there's more you need to know, about your real mother, about what really happened." For a moment I thought Daniel might break completely. But then he straightened, wiping his eyes. "Tell me everything," he said. As Olivia began to speak, unraveling decades of lies and secrets, I felt a strange mix of horror and relief wash over me. The truth was finally coming to light, but at what cost? I looked around at our fractured family. Samuel, slumped and defeated, Liam holding Olivia protectively, Daniel clinging to my hand like a lifeline. And in the distance, the police car carrying Mary away, 30 years of deception finally catching up with her. In that moment, standing on the shore of the lake where Daniel and I had shared so many happy memories, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. We had weathered the storm of Mary's lies, but the aftermath threatened to tear us apart. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I made a silent vow. Whatever came next, whatever truths were yet to be revealed, I would stand by Daniel. We would face it together, and somehow, someway, we would find a way to rebuild from the ashes of the life we once knew. The real test, I realized, was only just beginning. The courtroom was silent as we awaited the verdict. Daniel's hand gripped mine tightly, his knuckles white with tension. Across the aisle, Mary sat alone, a shadow of the formidable woman she once was. As the judge began to speak, I felt the weight of the past months pressing down on me. The grueling investigation, the painful revelations about Sarah's death, the fractures in our family that seemed impossible to mend. But through it all, Daniel and I had stood together, stronger than ever. In the case of the state versus Mary Anderson, on the charge of involuntary manslaughter, we find the defendant guilty. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. I turned to Daniel, seeing a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. Mary's shoulders slumped, defeat etched into every line of her face. As the judge continued with the sentencing, I found my mind drifting to the journey that had brought us here. The diary that started it all seemed like a lifetime ago. Now, we were facing a future I never could have imagined. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed the cameras. "Today, justice has been served," he said. "But there are no winners here. Only a family forever changed by secrets and lies. We ask for privacy as we begin to heal." As we pushed through the crowd, I caught sight of Samuel, standing apart from the chaos. Our eyes met, and I saw a lifetime of regret in his gaze. Daniel noticed too, hesitating for a moment before approaching his father. "Dad," he said softly, "would you like to come home with us?" Samuel's eyes welled with tears. "You'd want me there, after everything?" Daniel nodded. "You're still my father. We have a lot to work through, but we're family." The drive home was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. As we pulled into the driveway, I was surprised to see Liam and Olivia waiting on the porch, the twins asleep in their stroller. "We thought you might need some family around," Olivia said, embracing me tightly. Inside, as Samuel settled into an armchair and Liam helped Daniel open a bottle of wine, I found myself in the kitchen with Olivia. "I never thanked you," I said quietly, "for telling the truth, for standing by us through all of this." Olivia squeezed my hand. It was long overdue. I just wish I'd had the courage to speak up sooner. As we rejoined the others, I was struck by the scene before me. This patchwork family, battered and bruised, but still standing, still trying. Daniel raised his glass. "To truth," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and to new beginnings." As we clinked glasses, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I felt hope. Later that night, as Daniel and I lay in bed, he turned to me, his eyes shining in the darkness. "Anna," he whispered, "I don't think I ever properly thanked you for fighting for the truth, for fighting for us. I'm sorry I ever doubted you." I cupped his face in my hands. "We fought together, Daniel, and we'll keep fighting together, whatever comes next." He pulled me close, and as I drifted off to sleep in his arms, I realized that this was what I'd been searching for all along. Not the approval of a woman who could never truly love me, but the unshakable bond of a partnership built on trust and truth. Mary's reign of manipulation was over. In its place, we were building something new, something stronger. A family forged in fire, tempered by truth. As the first light of dawn crept through our window, I smiled. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them. With Daniel by my side and the truth as our compass, we could weather any storm. The future, for the first time in years, looked bright. The pencil snapped between my fingers, and I stared at the broken halves, my frustration mirroring the splintered wood. I tossed them onto my cluttered desk and leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, reminding me of the looming deadline. "Helena!" Ethan's voice boomed from downstairs. "Where are you? Dinner's getting cold." I sighed, glancing at my unfinished storyboard. "Coming!" I called back, reluctantly pushing away from my desk. As I descended the stairs, the aroma of garlic and herbs wafted up, making my stomach growl. Ethan stood at the bottom, arms crossed, his expression a mix of annoyance and concern. "You've been up there for hours," he said, his tone clipped. "I thought we agreed you'd take a break tonight." I forced a smile. "I'm sorry, I lost track of time. The publisher wants to see progress on the new storyline, and "The publisher this, the deadline that," Ethan interrupted, throwing his hands up. "When was the last time we had a proper conversation that didn't revolve around your work?" The word stung, but I bit back a retort. "Let's just have dinner, okay? I'm starving." We sat at the table, the silence between us thick and uncomfortable. I picked at my food, my appetite suddenly gone. "So," Ethan said, breaking the silence, "any plans to rejoin the land of the living anytime soon?" I set my fork down with a clatter. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm tired of being married to a ghost," he snapped. "You're either locked away in your office or zoned out thinking about your next project. We haven't been on a date in months, Helena." "I'm working towards something important," I defended. "This contract could change everything for us." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "Us? There is no us anymore. It's just you and your precious graphic novels." The words hit me like a slap. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "That's not fair, and you know it." "Isn't it?" Ethan challenged, rising to his feet. "When was the last time you did anything around the house? The laundry's piling up, the fridge is empty, and I can't remember the last time we had sex." I felt my cheeks burn with anger and embarrassment. "I didn't realize I was supposed to be your maid and your personal porn star." Ethan's eyes widened, then narrowed. "That's not what I meant, and you know it. I just want my wife back." "I'm right here," I shouted, gesturing wildly. "I'm sorry if my career is inconvenient for you, but I'm not going to apologize for pursuing my dreams." "Your dreams," Ethan repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "What about our dreams, Helena? What about the family we talked about, the life we planned together?" I felt the fight drain out of me, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. "People change, Ethan. Dreams change." "Yeah," he said, turning away. "I'm starting to see that." As he walked out of the room, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen and saw a message from my publisher. "Contract's ready. Meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. to sign." This is your big break, Helena. I stared at the message, my heart pounding with excitement and dread. This was everything I'd worked for, but at what cost? The sound of the front door slamming jolted me from my thoughts. I rushed to the window, watching Ethan's car peel out of the driveway and disappear down the street. As I stood there, alone in the quiet house, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of a precipice, about to take a leap that would change everything. I arrived at the publishing house the next morning, my nerves jangling like loose change in a pocket. The contract signing went smoothly, but as I left the building, my elation was tempered by the memory of Ethan's angry departure the night before. My phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, but I hesitated before answering. "Hello? Where are you?" His voice was cold, controlled. "I just finished the meeting with my publisher. I signed the contract." A long pause. "So you went ahead with it, without even discussing it with me?" "Ethan, we've talked about this for months. It's not like it's a surprise." "No, what's a surprise is coming home to find the house a mess and my wife gone." I felt a flash of anger. "I'm not your maid, Ethan. I have a career." "A career," he scoffed. "Is that what you call neglecting everything else in your life?" "That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Coming home to an empty fridge and a pile of laundry. Maybe, if you spent half as much time on our home as you do on your little drawings, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, tears pricking my eyes. "Helena? Is everything okay?" I turned to see Elijah, my old school friend, standing behind me. His concerned face was a welcome sight. "Elijah, what are you doing here?" He grinned. "I work just down the street. Saw you coming out looking like you'd seen a ghost. Want to grab a coffee?" At the cafe, I poured out my troubles to Elijah. He listened intently, his brow furrowed. "Helena, you can't let Ethan make you feel guilty for pursuing your dreams," he said finally. "Your talent is a gift. Don't let anyone dim your light." I smiled weakly. "Thanks, Elijah. It's just, I feel like I'm losing him, like I have to choose between my marriage and my career." Elijah leaned forward. "A real partner would support your ambitions, not resent them. Have you considered that maybe Ethan's the one who needs to change, not you?" His words struck a chord, but before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. A text from Ethan. "We need to talk. Be home by 6. I said goodbye to Elijah and headed home, my stomach in knots. When I arrived, Ethan was waiting in the living room, his face like thunder. "I've been thinking," he began without preamble. "This isn't working. Something has to change." "I agree," I said cautiously. "We need to find a better balance." "No," he cut me off. "You need to decide what's more important, your little hobby or our marriage." I felt like I'd been slapped. "My little hobby is my career, Ethan. It's part of who I am." "And what about who we are?" he demanded. "What about the life we planned, the family we talked about?" "Plans change, Ethan. People grow." His laugh was bitter. "Grow apart, you mean? That's not what I'm done competing with your drawings for your attention," he interrupted. "Either you start acting like a proper wife, or—" He left the threat hanging, but its implication was clear. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Or what?" I whispered. Ethan's eyes were cold. "Or maybe it's time we both reconsider this marriage." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. In that moment, I realized we were standing on the edge of a precipice, and the ground beneath us was crumbling fast. As I looked at Ethan, the man I had loved for so long, I couldn't help but wonder. Was this the beginning of the end, or just the end of the beginning? The days following Ethan's ultimatum were a blur of tension and unspoken accusations. We danced around each other like wary boxers, neither willing to throw the first punch. I buried myself in my work, using my art as a shield against the growing chasm between us. One evening, as I searched for a misplaced sketch in Ethan's home office, I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. Tucked away in his desk drawer was a stack of credit card bills, hidden beneath a pile of mundane paperwork. My hands trembled as I pulled them out, my eyes widening at the charges for luxury hotels I'd never heard of. "What are you doing?" I whirled around to find Ethan standing in the doorway, his face a mask of anger and... was that fear? "I was looking for a sketch," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I held up the bills. "What are these, Ethan?" He crossed the room in 3 quick strides, snatching the papers from my hand. "Those are private. You had no right to go through my things. Private? I echoed, incredulous. We're married, Ethan. Since when do we keep secrets? His laugh was harsh, bitter. That's rich coming from you. You've been keeping plenty of secrets lately, haven't you? Locking yourself away, choosing your work over me. I felt my temper flare. My work isn't a secret, Ethan. It's my career, my passion. But this, I gestured to the bills he was clutching. This looks like something else entirely. You wouldn't understand, he muttered, turning away. Then help me understand, I pleaded. What's going on, Ethan? Who were you with at those hotels? He spun back to face me, his eyes blazing. Is that what you think? That I'm cheating on you? What am I supposed to think? I shot back. You've been distant, angry, and now these bills? Maybe if you paid half as much attention to our marriage as you do to your little comic books, you wouldn't have to ask these questions, he spat. The words stung, but I stood my ground. Don't turn this around on me. I'm not the one with unexplained hotel stays on my credit card. Ethan's face contorted with rage. He slammed the bills down on the desk, making me flinch. I don't have to explain myself to you, not when you've made it clear where your priorities lie. My priorities? I echoed, disbelieving. You're the one who gave me an ultimatum, Ethan. You're the one who told me to choose between my career and our marriage. Because I'm tired of being second best, he roared. I'm tired of coming home to an empty house, of feeling like a stranger in my own marriage. We stood there, chests heaving, the air between us crackling with tension. In that moment, I saw a stranger standing before me, not the man I'd married. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Who are you? I whispered, more to myself than to him. Ethan's face softened for a moment, a flicker of the man I once knew shining through. But then the mask slammed back into place. I could ask you the same thing, he said coldly. He brushed past me, pausing at the door. I'm going out. Don't wait up. The front door slammed moments later, leaving me alone in the sudden silence. I sank into Ethan's chair, my mind reeling. The credit card bills lay scattered on the desk, each one a damning piece of evidence. As I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of our shattered trust, a chilling thought crept into my mind. What if I didn't really know Ethan at all? And more terrifyingly, what if I no longer recognized the person I'd become? The questions swirled in my head, unanswered and menacing. One thing was clear. Our marriage was balanced on a knife's edge, and I had a sinking feeling we were about to fall. The days after discovering the hotel bills were a haze of suspicion and doubt. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept drifting back to those damning pieces of paper. Ethan's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his mood swinging between cold indifference and explosive anger. One afternoon, I decided to confront him directly. I couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. I found him in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables for dinner. Ethan, we need to talk about those bills, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He slammed the knife down, making me jump. I told you to drop it, Helena. It's none of your business. None of my business? I echoed, incredulous. I'm your wife. If you're... I couldn't bring myself to say the word cheating. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Oh, now you remember you're my wife? Funny how that only matters when it suits you. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression changing subtly. I have to go out, he said abruptly, heading for the door. Something in his tone made me suspicious. Where are you going? Work emergency, he muttered, not meeting my eyes. On impulse, I grabbed my keys. I'll come with you. Ethan's face paled. No, it's fine, I won't be long. But I was already following him out the door. He drove erratically, constantly checking his rearview mirror. I stayed a few cars behind, my heart pounding. He pulled into the parking lot of an upscale hotel. I watched, stunned, as a young woman with long blonde hair rushed out to meet him. They embraced, and my world shattered. I sat in my car, trembling, as they disappeared into the hotel. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't look away. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, they emerged, laughing and holding hands. As they reached Ethan's car, the woman, Angie, I would later learn, kissed him passionately. It was like a knife to my heart. I don't remember driving home. I was numb, moving on autopilot. When Ethan returned hours later, I was waiting. How long? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He froze, his eyes darting around the room. Helena, I can explain. How long? I repeated, each word sharp as glass. Ethan's shoulders slumped. 6 months. he admitted. The truth hit me like a physical blow. 6 months, half a year of lies, of betrayal. Why? I choked out, his face contorted with anger. Because she makes me feel wanted, Helena. She doesn't disappear into her work for days on end. She's there for me, really there. So this is my fault? I asked, incredulous. You're never here, he shouted. You're always working, always with your head in the clouds. I needed someone who saw me, who put me first. His words stung, but a part of me recognized the truth in them. Had I really been so absent? I put you first by supporting us while you chased your dreams, I said quietly. I put you first by believing in you, even when you didn't believe in yourself. Ethan's face softened for a moment, then hardened again. It's not enough, Helena. I need more. I need a real wife, not just a roommate who occasionally remembers I exist. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with finality. What do you want from me, Ethan? I asked, my voice hollow. His eyes met mine, cold and determined. I want you to quit, give up this graphic novel nonsense and be the wife I need. Or... He left the ultimatum unspoken, but I heard it loud and clear. My career or my marriage. My passion or my partner. As I stood there facing the man I thought I knew, I realized I was at a crossroads. The decision I made now would shape the rest of my life. The question was, could I live with either choice? The days following Ethan's ultimatum were a blur of tears and sleepless nights. I threw myself into my work, desperately trying to ignore the gaping wound in my heart. But every time I looked up from my drafting table, the empty house seemed to mock me. One afternoon, I emerged from my studio to find Ethan standing in the living room, his face a mask of barely contained rage. What is this? He demanded, gesturing to the pile of laundry on the couch, the dishes in the sink, the layer of dust on every surface. I blinked, disoriented. Had it really been that long since I'd done any housework? I've been working on a deadline, I started to explain, but Ethan cut me off. Always with the deadlines, he exploded. What about your responsibilities here? What about being a wife? The words stung, but I felt my own anger rising to meet his. Being a wife doesn't mean being your maid, Ethan, and it certainly doesn't mean giving up my career for your comfort. His eyes narrowed. So that's your decision then? Your little comic books over our marriage? They're not just comic books, I snapped. They're my passion, my art. And unlike you, they don't demand I give up everything I am to be worthy of them. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed a line. Ethan's face went white, then red with fury. If that's how you feel, he said, his voice dangerously quiet, then maybe we don't have anything left to discuss. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I stood there, shaking, as the silence of the house closed in around me. Hours passed. The sun set, casting long shadows across the cluttered living room. I was about to call Ethan when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Jean, our elderly neighbor and an old family friend, standing on the porch. Helena, dear, he said, his kind eyes crinkling with concern. I saw Ethan tear out of here earlier. Is everything all right? Before I knew it, I was pouring out the whole sordid story, the fights, the affair, the ultimatum. Jean listened patiently, his weathered face growing more troubled with each revelation. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Helena, I've known you and Ethan since you were newlyweds. The man you're describing, that's not the Ethan I know. I laughed bitterly. Maybe none of us really knew him. Jean shook his head. No, that's not what I mean. The Ethan I know would never give you an ultimatum like that. He was always so proud of your talent, your drive. His words made me pause. It was true, Ethan had once been my biggest cheerleader. When had that changed? Something doesn't add up, Jean continued. Have you considered that there might be more to this story than you know? I frowned. What do you mean? Jean leaned in, his voice low. I've seen some strange things lately. Late-night phone calls, mysterious visitors when you're not home. I think there's more going on with Ethan than just an affair. My mind reeled. What was Jean suggesting? That Ethan was involved in something even worse than infidelity? What should I do? I whispered, feeling lost and overwhelmed. Jean's eyes met mine, steady and determined. You need to dig deeper, Helena, for your sake and for Ethan's. There are secrets here that need to come to light. As Jean's words sank in, I felt a shift inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there, but now they were joined by a fierce determination. If there were secrets to uncover, I would find them. I looked at Jean, my jaw set. You're right, it's time I got some real answers. As Jean left, I stood in the doorway, watching the night settle over our quiet street. I knew that whatever I discovered next would change everything, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it, no matter the cost. Jean's words echoed in my mind as I stood in our bedroom, my hands trembling as I rifled through Ethan's belongings. I felt like a thief in my own home, but I needed answers. The guilt gnawing at me was nothing compared to the desperation clawing at my chest. That's when I found it, a hotel loyalty card I'd never seen before, tucked away in the back of his wallet. My heart raced as I examined it, noting the high-end chain's logo. This was it, the smoking gun I'd been looking for. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and downloaded a GPS tracking app. I hesitated for a moment, my finger hovering over the install button. Was I really going to do this? Invade Ethan's privacy so completely? But then I remembered the lipstick stain I'd found on his collar last week, the hushed phone calls, the way he'd pull away when I tried to touch him. I hit install. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and adrenaline. I played the part of the oblivious wife, all while obsessively checking the app. Ethan's movements became a roadmap of betrayal, frequent stops at unfamiliar addresses, long stays at hotels across town. One evening, as we sat in stony silence at the dinner table, my phone buzzed. Ethan had just checked into the same hotel where I'd first seen him with Angie. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, his voice laced with false concern. I forced a smile. "Just work stuff, nothing important." He nodded, already losing interest. "I have to go out of town this weekend, business trip." The lie rolled off his tongue so easily it made me sick. "Oh? Where to?" "Just a conference upstate. Boring stuff." I nodded, my mind racing. This was it, my chance to catch him red-handed. The next day I followed him at a distance, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he'd hear it even from his own car. We ended up at a luxurious resort, the kind of place we used to dream about visiting together. I watched from across the parking lot as Angie ran to greet him, throwing her arms around his neck. They kissed passionately, oblivious to the world around them, oblivious to me, watching from the shadows, my world crumbling. Tears blurred my vision as I fumbled for my phone, snapping picture after picture. Each click of the camera felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. As they disappeared into the resort, arm in arm, I sat in my car, overwhelmed by the weight of what I'd discovered. It wasn't just an affair, it was a whole other life Ethan had built without me. My phone buzzed again. A text from Elijah. "How are you holding up? Want to grab coffee?" I stared at the message, a lifeline in the storm of my emotions. Elijah had been my rock through all of this, a reminder that not everyone in my life was a liar. But as I was about to reply, another notification popped up. The tracking app. Ethan was on the move again. My finger hovered between Elijah's message and the app. In that moment, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could turn back now, pretend I never saw any of this, and try to salvage what was left of my marriage. Or I could push forward, uncover the full extent of Ethan's betrayal and face the consequences. The choice seemed impossible. My hand shook as I looked from my phone to the resort where my husband was with another woman. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, was a lie. And now I had to decide, did I want the comforting illusion or the painful truth? As the sun set over the resort, casting long shadows across the parking lot, I made my decision. There was no turning back now. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it head-on. With a deep breath, I started my car. It was time to confront Ethan and reclaim my life, whatever the cost. My hands shook as I dialed Ethan's parents. I'd never imagined I'd be making this call, but I needed allies. To my surprise, they believed me instantly. "We've suspected something was wrong for a while," his mother said, her voice tight with anger. "We'll meet you there." The next morning I stood in the resort lobby, flanked by Ethan's parents. My heart raced as we approached the front desk. "We're here to surprise Ethan," I said, forcing a smile. The receptionist, sensing the tension, hesitated before giving us a key card. As we rode the elevator, Ethan's father placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing, Helena," he said softly. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. We paused outside the room. I could hear muffled laughter from inside. With a deep breath, I swiped the key card. The door swung open. Ethan and Angie froze mid-embrace, their faces a mask of shock and horror. "Helena?" Ethan gasped, stumbling backward. "Mom? Dad? What are you?" "Save it," I snapped, my voice steadier than I felt. I pulled out my phone, showing him the tracking app. "I know everything, Ethan. The hotels, the lies, all of it." Angie scrambled to gather her things, her face burning with shame. Ethan's parents stood silent, their disappointment palpable. "Helena, please," Ethan begged, reaching for me. "I can explain." I stepped back, my anger rising. "Explain what? How you've been living a double life? How you made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting something was wrong?" "I never meant to hurt you," he stammered. A bitter laugh escaped me. "You gave me an ultimatum, Ethan. My career or our marriage, all while you were sneaking around with her." I gestured to Angie, who flinched, and then Ethan's father stepped forward, his face a storm of anger. "Son, how'd you do this? To Helena? To your family?" "Dad, Ethan started, but his mother cut him off. "We raised you better than this," she said, her voice quivering with disappointment. As the reality of the situation sank in, Ethan's facade crumbled. He sank onto the bed, head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." But his words felt hollow. I looked at the man I'd loved, the life we'd built, and felt nothing but a vast, aching emptiness. "I want a divorce," I said, the words ringing with finality. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with panic. "No, Helena, please. We can work this out. I'll do anything." "It's too late," I interrupted. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." As I turned to leave, Angie spoke up. "Helena, I'm sorry. I didn't know." I held up a hand, silencing her. "Save it. You're welcome to him." With that, I walked out of the room, out of the marriage that had defined me for so long. Ethan's parents followed, leaving him alone with the wreckage of his choices. In the elevator, the adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation began to fade. My knees buckled, and Ethan's mother caught me, pulling me into a fierce hug. "You're so brave," she whispered. "We're here for you, whatever you need." As we exited the resort, the bright sunlight felt like a spotlight on my pain. But beneath the hurt and betrayal, I felt something else stirring. A sense of freedom, of possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to imagine in years. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my wedding ring on my finger. With trembling hands, I slipped it off, staring at the small circle of gold that had once meant everything. "What now?" Ethan's father asked gently. I closed my fist around the ring, feeling the metal bite into my palm. "Now," I said, my voice growing stronger, "I start over, on my own terms." As we drove away from the resort, leaving Ethan and our shattered marriage behind, I felt a strange mix of grief and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was mine to choose. The weeks following the confrontation at the resort were a whirlwind of lawyers, paperwork, and tears. Ethan begged and pleaded, promising to change, swearing he'd do anything to save our marriage. But the trust was shattered, and I knew there was no going back. I stood in my living room, surrounded by boxes. The house that had once been our shared dream now felt like a prison of memories. I'd decided to sell it, to cut all ties with the life I'd shared with Ethan. As I taped up another box, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, looking haggard and desperate. "Helena, please," he said, his voice breaking. "Don't do this. We can work it out. I'll go to therapy. I'll quit my job. Anything you want." I felt a flicker of pity, quickly extinguished by the memory of his betrayal. "It's too late, Ethan. We're done." He fell to his knees, grabbing my hands. "I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you." I gently pulled away. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed me. You wouldn't have tried to force me to give up my dreams." "I was wrong," he sobbed. "I see that now. Please, give me another chance." For a moment I wavered. The familiar pull of our shared history tugged at my heart. But then I remembered the strength I'd found in myself, the passion for my work that had sustained me through the darkest days. "No," I said firmly. "I deserve better, and I'm choosing myself." As I closed the door on Ethan's broken form, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I turned back to the boxes, now seeing them not as an end, but as a beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from my publisher. "Final draft received. It's brilliant, Helena. This could be your breakout work." I smiled, feeling a surge of pride and excitement. My graphic novel, born from the pain and growth of the past months, was ready to meet the world. There was a knock at the door. This time, it was Elijah, arms full of packing tape and bubble wrap. "Reinforcements have arrived," he announced with a grin. As we worked, Elijah regaled me with stories of his latest adventures, making me laugh for the first time in what felt like ages. I realized how much I'd missed this simple friendship, unmarred by expectations or betrayal. "You know," Elijah said as we sealed the last box, "I always knew you were strong, but the way you've handled all this, you're a freaking superhero, Helena." I blushed, but stood a little straighter. I don't know about superhero, but I do feel free, like I can finally be myself without apology. As the moving truck pulled away with the last of my belongings, I stood on the front lawn, keys in hand. Ethan's parents pulled up, here to support me one last time. "We're so proud of you," Ethan's mother said, hugging me tight. "You'll always be family to us, no matter what." I handed them the keys. "Thank you for everything." With a deep breath, I walked away from the house, from the life I'd thought I wanted. Each step felt lighter, filled with possibility. Elijah waited by his car. "Ready for your new adventure?" I looked back at the house one last time, then turned to face the open road ahead. More than ready. As we drove away, the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant hues of pink and gold. It felt like a sign, an ending, yes, but also a beautiful new beginning. I thought of my graphic novel, of the strong, resilient heroine I'd created. I realized now that she wasn't just a character. She was the woman I'd become through this ordeal. "You know," I said to Elijah, "I think I have an idea for my next book." He grinned. "I can't wait to read it." As the familiar streets of my old life faded in the rearview mirror, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it would lead. I was Helena, artist, survivor, and author of my own story, and this was just the beginning. I never thought I'd be grateful for my mother's obsession with prenups, but here we are, I muttered, staring at the pristine white walls of our new home. The house was a wedding gift from my parents, Patricia and George, nestled in the picturesque landscape of Upper New York. It was supposed to be the start of our happily ever after, but life had other plans. My husband Bart was busy unpacking boxes in the living room, his tall frame bent over as he sorted through our belongings. "Natalie, honey, can you give me a hand with this?" he called out, his voice muffled by the cardboard. I sighed, pushing away from the window. "Coming," I replied, plastering on a smile as I joined him. As I helped Bart unpack, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He'd been unusually quiet since we arrived, his usual charm and easygoing nature replaced by a nervous energy. "Everything okay?" I asked, placing a hand on his arm. Bart hesitated, then set down the box he was holding. "Actually, there's something we need to talk about," he said, his blue eyes clouded with worry. My stomach dropped. "What is it?" Before Bart could answer, the doorbell rang. He visibly relaxed, as if saved by the bell. "That must be Mom," he said, hurrying to the door. I froze. His mother, Jennifer, wasn't supposed to visit until next week. I followed Bart to the entryway, where he was already embracing a petite woman with graying hair. "Jennifer," I said, forcing a smile. "What a surprise." Jennifer pulled away from Bart and turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears. "Oh, Natalie," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry to barge in like this, but I couldn't wait any longer." Bart placed a hand on his mother's shoulder. "Mom, why don't we sit down?" he suggested, leading her to the living room. As we settled onto the couch, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, I felt a growing sense of dread. Jennifer clutched Bart's hand, her knuckles white. "What's going on?" I asked, looking between them. Jennifer took a deep breath. "I've been diagnosed with terminal cancer," she said, her words hanging heavy in the air. "The doctors say I have less than a year." I gasped, genuinely shocked. "Oh, Jennifer, I'm so sorry," I said, reaching out to touch her arm. She gave me a watery smile. "Thank you, dear, but that's not all." She glanced at Bart, who nodded encouragingly. "I can't live alone anymore, and I was hoping, well, we were hoping." Bart cleared his throat. "Mom's going to move in with us, Natalie," he said, his tone leaving no room for discussion. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Our new home, our fresh start, was suddenly being invaded. But how could I object? The woman was dying, for heaven's sake. "Of course," I heard myself say, as if from a distance. "We have plenty of room." Jennifer's face lit up. "Oh, thank you both so much," she gushed, pulling us into a group hug. As we embraced, I caught Bart's eye over his mother's shoulder. He mouthed a silent, "Thank you," but I couldn't bring myself to smile back. This wasn't how our life together was supposed to begin. Later that night, as Bart slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. How had our perfect new beginning turned into this? I loved Bart, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing control of my own life. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would test the limits of my love, patience, and ultimately my capacity for revenge. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen as I tried to focus on my laptop screen. 3 weeks had passed since Jennifer moved in, and I felt like a stranger in my own home. Every morning, I'd find her rearranging my carefully organized cupboards or changing our routines without consultation. "Natalie, dear," Jennifer's voice chirped from behind me. "I hope you don't mind, but I've invited the ladies from my support group over for tea this afternoon." I gripped my coffee mug tighter, forcing a smile. "Actually, Jennifer, I have an important conference call scheduled for—" "Oh, don't worry," she interrupted, patting my shoulder. "We'll be quiet as church mice. You won't even know we're here." Before I could protest further, Bart wandered into the kitchen, still in his pajamas despite it being nearly noon. "Morning, ladies," he yawned, kissing his mother's cheek before giving me a quick peck. "Bart," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "can I talk to you for a minute, in private?" He followed me to our bedroom, looking confused. "What's up, honey?" I took a deep breath. "Bart, we need to set some boundaries with your mother. She's taking over the house, changing things without asking, and now she's inviting people over during my work hours." Bart's face fell. "Come on, Nat. She's going through a tough time. Can't you cut her some slack?" "I've been cutting her slack for weeks," I snapped. "But this is our home, and I need some say in what goes on here." "It's her home now, too," Bart replied, his voice hardening. "And in case you've forgotten, she's dying. The least we can do is make her comfortable." I felt a surge of anger. "And what about my comfort? My work? Does that not matter anymore?" Bart's eyes narrowed. "I can't believe how selfish you're being right now. My mother needs us, and all you can think about is yourself." His words hit me like a slap. "Selfish? I've bent over backward to accommodate her, but there has to be a limit." "Well, maybe you need to be more flexible," Bart shot back. "Family comes first, Natalie. I thought you understood that." I stared at him, feeling a chasm opening between us. "I thought we were a family, Bart, you and me." He shook his head, looking disappointed. "We are, but that includes my mother now, too. I need you to accept that." Without another word, he turned and left the room. I stood there, stunned by the realization that for the first time in our marriage, Bart had chosen someone else over me. The rest of the day passed in a blur. True to her word, Jennifer's friends were quiet, but their presence felt like an invasion. I struggled to concentrate on my call, acutely aware of the murmured conversations and occasional laughter drifting up from downstairs. That evening, as I was clearing up the kitchen, I overheard Bart and Jennifer talking in the living room. "I'm worried about Natalie," Jennifer said softly. "She seems so tense all the time. Maybe this arrangement isn't working out." "No, Mom," Bart replied firmly. "This is your home now. Natalie will adjust. She just needs time." I set down the plate I was holding, my hands shaking. Adjust? Was that all I was expected to do? Silently accept the complete upheaval of my life? As I stood there, grappling with a mix of hurt and anger, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me looked tired, defeated. This wasn't the strong, independent Natalie I knew myself to be. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I realized that if I didn't stand up for myself now, I might lose myself entirely. But how could I fight back without seeming like the villain in this family drama? Little did I know, the situation was about to become even more complicated, pushing me closer to the breaking point and setting the stage for a confrontation that would change everything. I was in the middle of a crucial work presentation when my phone buzzed incessantly. Ignoring it, I powered through, only to find 5 missed calls from Bart when I finished. My heart raced as I dialed him back, fearing the worst about Jennifer's health. "Nat, great news!" Bart's voice boomed through the speaker. "Cole's coming home." I blinked, confused. "Cole? Your brother? What do you mean, Coming home? He's quitting his job in California and moving back east, Bart explained, his excitement palpable. He'll stay with us while he gets back on his feet. Isn't it fantastic? The room spun. Another person in our already crowded house? Bart, wait a minute. We can't just... Oh, Mom's calling. Gotta go, love you. He hung up before I could protest. I sat there, stunned. How could Bart make such a monumental decision without even consulting me? Our home wasn't a halfway house for his entire family. That evening, I confronted Bart in the kitchen while Jennifer watched her favorite game show in the living room. We need to talk about Cole, I said, keeping my voice low. Bart looked up from chopping vegetables. What about him? Isn't it great he's coming back? I took a deep breath. Bart, you can't just invite people to live in our home without discussing it with me first. He set down the knife, frowning. Cole's family, Natalie. He needs our support. And what about what I need? I countered. This is my home too, and I feel like I'm losing all control over it. Bart's expression hardened. You're being selfish again. Cole's going through a tough time, and Mom needs all the family support she can get. Don't you dare call me selfish, I hissed. I've bent over backward to accommodate your mother, but this is too much. We're supposed to be partners, Bart. You can't keep making these decisions unilaterally. I'm not, he insisted. I'm doing what's best for our family. Our family? I laughed bitterly. It seems like your definition of our family doesn't include me anymore. Jennifer's voice floated in from the living room. Is everything all right in there, dears? Bart called back. Everything's fine, Mom, before turning to me with a pleading look. Can we talk about this later? I don't want to upset her. I threw up my hands in frustration and stormed out of the kitchen. As I passed the living room, Jennifer caught my eye, her expression a mix of concern and something else. Was that triumph? The next few days were a flurry of activity as Bart prepared for Cole's arrival. I threw myself into work, trying to ignore the growing resentment in my chest. The night before Cole was due to arrive, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Nat? Bart's voice was soft in the darkness. Are you still upset about Cole? I turned to face him. It's not just about Cole, Bart. It's about us. I feel like I'm losing you to your family. He reached out, pulling me close. You're not losing me. You're my wife, and I love you. But my family needs me right now. Can't you understand that? I wanted to understand. I really did. But as I lay there in Bart's arms, I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage was slipping away, one family crisis at a time. The next morning, I steeled myself as I heard a car pull up outside. Moments later, the front door burst open, and Cole's booming voice filled the house. Honey, I'm home, he called out, laughing at his own joke. I plastered on a smile and went to greet him, but stopped short in the hallway. Cole wasn't alone. Behind him stood a young woman, her arm linked with his. Hey, sis, Cole grinned, oblivious to my shock. Meet Amber, my fiancée. Hope you don't mind, but she'll be staying with us too. We're getting married. As Bart and Jennifer rushed to congratulate the happy couple, I stood frozen, feeling like an outsider in my own home. This wasn't just an invasion anymore. It was a full-scale takeover. And I was the only one who seemed to care. The once pristine kitchen counters were now cluttered with empty beer bottles and half-eaten bags of chips. I grimaced as I navigated the mess, the acrid smell of stale cigarette smoke assaulting my nostrils. This wasn't my home anymore. It was a frat house. Cole, I called out, my patience wearing thin. How many times do I have to ask you to clean up after yourself? A muffled groan came from the living room. I stormed in to find Cole sprawled on the couch, Amber curled up beside him. The coffee table was littered with more bottles and an overflowing ashtray. Sorry, sis, Cole mumbled, not bothering to open his eyes. We'll get to it later. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to scream. No, you'll get to it now. I have clients coming over in an hour, and this place is a pigsty. Amber stirred, fixing me with a bleary-eyed glare. Chill out, Natalie. It's not like it's a big deal. Before I could respond, Jennifer appeared in the doorway, her face etched with concern. What's all the commotion about? I turned to her, exasperated. Jennifer, look at this mess. It's unacceptable. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, they're young. Let them have their fun. I'll tidy up later. That's not the point, I snapped. This is my home, and I expect it to be respected. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Our home, dear. Remember, we're all family here. The word family felt like a slap in the face. I opened my mouth to argue further, but the smell of smoke suddenly intensified. Whirling around, I saw flames licking up the curtains near where Cole had carelessly tossed a cigarette butt. "Fire!" I screamed, rushing to grab the fire extinguisher. Chaos erupted as everyone scrambled to action. I managed to douse the flames, but not before they left a large charred hole in the expensive curtains my mother had gifted us. As the smoke cleared, I stood there, shaking with anger and shock. Bart burst into the room, having heard the commotion from upstairs. "What happened?" he demanded, looking around wildly. "Your brother?" I spat. "Almost burned down our house because he can't be bothered to use an ashtray." Cole had the decency to look ashamed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "Save it," I cut him off. "I want you and Amber out, now." Bart stepped between us. "Natalie, calm down, it was an accident." I couldn't believe my ears. "Calm down? Bart, do you not see how serious this is?" "Of course I do," he said, his voice maddeningly calm. "But kicking them out isn't the answer. We're family, we need to stick together." I looked around at their faces, Bart's pleading, Jennifer's disapproving, Cole's sheepish, Amber's defiant. In that moment, I felt more alone than ever. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. "If that's how you all feel, I'll be the one to leave." I stormed upstairs, throwing some clothes into a bag. As I zipped it up, Bart appeared in the doorway. "Nat, don't do this," he begged. "Where will you go?" I shouldered past him. "Anywhere but here." As I reached the front door, Jennifer called out, "Natalie, dear, you're overreacting. Why don't we all sit down and talk about this?" I turned to face them one last time. "There's nothing to talk about. You've made it clear where your priorities lie, Bart. And it's not with me or our marriage." With that, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. As I got into my car, hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel, I realized I had no idea where I was going. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't stay in that house another minute. As I drove away, tears blurring my vision, I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of loss. The life I thought I had, the marriage I believed in, it was all crumbling around me. And for the first time, I allowed myself to consider a possibility I'd been avoiding for weeks. Maybe this marriage wasn't worth saving after all. I returned home after 3 days at a hotel, my anger simmering, but my resolve strengthened. As I walked through the front door, the eerie silence struck me. No TV blaring, no chatter, no mess in sight. Something was off. Bart emerged from the kitchen, his face a mask of forced calm. "Natalie, we need to talk." I steeled myself. "Yes, we do. This situation is untenable, Bart. Things need to change." He nodded, gesturing to the living room. As we sat down, I noticed Jennifer peering from behind a partially closed door. My jaw clenched. "I've been thinking," Bart began, his voice unnaturally steady. "Maybe it's best if we take some time apart." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "It's just the constant arguing, the tension. It's not good for anyone, especially Mom in her condition." I felt like I was drowning. "So you want to separate because I'm making your mother uncomfortable?" "It's not just that," he hurried to add. "Your attitude, the constant nagging, it's creating a toxic environment for everyone." I laughed bitterly. "My attitude? Bart, have you looked around lately? Your family has taken over our home, our life." "See, this is exactly what I'm talking about," he sighed. "You keep saying your family like they're not your family, too." "Because they're not acting like it," I exploded. "They've shown zero respect for me or this home, and you've done nothing but enable them." Bart's face hardened. "They're going through a difficult time. I thought you'd be more understanding." Understanding? I was on my feet now, shaking with fury. "I've been nothing but understanding. I've put up with your mother rearranging my home, your brother nearly burning it down, and you've consistently chosen them over me, your wife." "That's not fair," Bart protested weakly. "No, what's not fair is you blindsiding me with this separation nonsense instead of standing up for our marriage." The door creaked open, and Jennifer stepped out, her face a picture of concern. "I'm so sorry, dears. I never meant to cause such strife." I rounded on her. "Oh, save it, Jennifer. This is exactly what you wanted, isn't it? To drive a wedge between us?" Bart jumped to his feet. "That's enough. How dare you accuse my mother?" "Your mother, your brother, your family," I spat. "That's all I've heard for months. What about me, Bart? What about us?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. I don't know what you want from me, Natalie. I'm trying to keep everyone happy. Except me, I finished for him. Well, congratulations. You've succeeded in making everyone happy but your wife. Jennifer stepped closer, reaching out to touch my arm. Natalie, dear, perhaps if you tried to be a little more accommodating. I jerked away from her. Don't touch me, and don't you dare tell me how to behave in my own home. Bart's eyes flashed with anger. That's it. I can't take this anymore. Natalie, I think you should leave. Take some time to cool off and think about your priorities. I stared at him, disbelief and hurt warring inside me. My priorities? What about yours, Bart? When did I stop being your priority? He didn't answer, just looked away. In that moment, I saw our marriage for what it truly was, a sham, a convenience for Bart to play the dutiful son and brother while I faded into the background. Fine, I said, my voice cold. I'll leave, but don't expect me to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness. This time, you've gone too far. As I stormed upstairs to pack a bag, I heard Jennifer consoling Bart, telling him he'd done the right thing. Their voices faded as I moved through our bedroom, grabbing essentials. My hand paused over a framed photo of Bart and me on our wedding day. With a sudden, decisive movement, I slammed it face down. That happy couple was gone, replaced by strangers occupying the same space. As I left, bag in hand, I realized this wasn't just about saving my marriage anymore. It was about saving myself. I sat in my best friend Sarah's living room, clutching a glass of wine like a lifeline. My voice cracked as I recounted the events of the past few months, ending with Bart's devastating suggestion of separation. Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. That spineless weasel! How dare he choose his family over you? I sighed, feeling drained. I don't know what to do, Sarah. I feel like I've lost everything. She leaned forward, her expression determined. No, Natalie, you haven't lost everything. You've lost dead weight. It's time to take back control of your life. Her words sparked something inside me. But how? Bart and his family have taken over my home, my life. Sarah's lips curved into a sly smile. Remember who owns that house, Nat? Your parents gave it to you, not Bart. My eyes widened as realization dawned. You're right, the deed is in my name. Exactly, Sarah nodded. It's time to talk to your parents and a lawyer. You need to protect yourself and your assets. The next day, I met with my parents, Patricia and George. Their faces were a mix of concern and anger as I explained the situation. Oh, sweetheart, Mom said, pulling me into a hug. We had no idea things had gotten so bad. Dad's voice was steel. That boy never deserved you, Natalie, or our generosity. I took a deep breath. I need your help. I want to fight back, but I'm not sure how. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. We have just the person, Dad said, reaching for his phone. Remember your cousin Michael? He's a divorce attorney now. Within hours, I was sitting in Michael's office, laying out my story. He listened intently, his brow furrowing as I spoke. Natalie, he said when I finished, based on what you've told me, you have a strong case. The house is clearly your separate property, not a marital asset. Bart has no claim to it. Hope bloomed in my chest. So what do we do? Michael's smile was predatory. We go on the offensive. I'll draw up divorce papers immediately. We'll make it clear that Bart and his family need to vacate your property. As I left Michael's office, a plan forming in my mind, my phone buzzed. It was Bart. Natalie, please come home, his voice was pleading. We need to talk. I steeled myself. I'll be there in an hour. Walking into our house, my house, I felt a surge of confidence. Bart was waiting in the living room, looking haggard. Nat, I'm so sorry, he began. I've been thinking, and I realize I made a mistake. Can we please work this out? I almost laughed. Work what out, Bart? The fact that you chose your family over me? That you let them disrespect me in my own home? He flinched. I know I messed up, but no. I cut him off. There are no buts. It's too late for apologies. Bart's face fell. What are you saying? I took a deep breath, channeling all my hurt and anger into my next words. I'm saying it's over, Bart. I want a divorce. The color drained from his face. Divorce? Natalie? Please, let's not be hasty. Hasty, I scoffed. I've been patient for months, while you and your family walked all over me. Well, not anymore. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of concern. What's going on? I turned to her, my voice ice. What's going on is that you, Cole, and Amber need to start packing. This is my house, and I want you all out. Bart stood up, his face twisted with anger. You can't do that. This is our home. I pulled out the papers Michael had given me. Actually, I can. This house was a gift from my parents to me. It's not marital property, Bart. You have no claim to it. As the reality of the situation sank in, I saw the shock and disbelief on their faces. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of power and control. You have 1 week to move out, I said, my voice steady. All of you. As I turned to leave, Bart grabbed my arm. Natalie, please. Don't do this. I love you. I jerked away from him, tears stinging my eyes. If you loved me, Bart, we wouldn't be here. Goodbye. Walking out of the house, I felt a mix of emotions. Sadness, anger, but most of all, a sense of liberation. The war wasn't over, but I had just won a major battle, and I was ready to fight for my life back, no matter what it took. The week following my ultimatum passed in a blur of legal meetings and tense silence at home. Bart and his family seemed to be in a state of shock, tiptoeing around me as if I might explode at any moment. Part of me relished their discomfort, but another part ached for the life I thought we'd have. On the day of our first negotiation meeting, I steeled myself in the parking lot of Michael's office. This was it, the moment that would define my future. As I walked in, I saw Bart sitting there with his own lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. For a moment, my resolve wavered. Natalie, he said, his voice cracking, please, can we talk about this privately? I shook my head. We're beyond that, Bart. Let's just get this over with. Michael cleared his throat. All right, let's begin. Mr. Harrison, we've prepared a comprehensive divorce settlement. The main point of contention is, of course, the house. Bart's lawyer leaned forward. Yes, about that. My client contends that as the house was a wedding gift, it should be considered marital property. I felt a surge of anger, but Michael just smiled. I'm afraid that's not the case. We have documentation proving the house was gifted solely to Mrs. Harrison by her parents. It's her separate property. The color drained from Bart's face. What? But that's our home. We've lived there for years. Be that as it may, Michael continued, legally the house belongs to Natalie. She's within her rights to ask you and your family to vacate the premises. Bart turned to me, his eyes pleading. Natalie, you can't do this. Where will we go? What about my mother? I felt a lump in my throat but pushed through. I'm sorry, Bart, but you should have thought about that before you let your family take over our lives. His lawyer whispered something to him, and Bart's face hardened. Fine, if that's how you want to play it, we'll fight this in court. I'm sure a judge will see reason. Michael shook his head. I wouldn't advise that, Mr. Harrison. The law is clear on this matter. You'd be wasting time and money you don't have. The meeting devolved into heated arguments and tense negotiations. Hours passed, and I felt my energy draining. Just when I thought we'd reached an impasse, Bart suddenly deflated. Enough, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll sign the papers. We'll move out. Relief washed over me, but it was tinged with sadness. This was really happening. My marriage was over. As we prepared to leave, Bart caught my arm. Natalie, I know I messed up, but is this really what you want? To throw away everything we had? I looked into his eyes, seeing the man I once loved. We threw it away a long time ago, Bart. This is just making it official. Leaving the office, I felt a mix of triumph and loss. I had won, but at what cost? That evening, as I sat alone in my quiet house, the reality of my situation hit me. I was free, but I was also alone. The house that was once filled with laughter and love now felt empty and cold. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. How did it go? Want me to come over? I stared at the message, tears welling up in my eyes. This was my new reality. No more Bart, no more in-laws, no more chaos. Just me in this big, empty house. As I typed my reply, I realized that this wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. One that I would write on my own terms. Come over, I texted back. It's time to celebrate my independence. I took a deep breath, looking around at the house that was now truly mine. The battle was won, but the war of rebuilding my life was just beginning. And for the first time in months, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The day Bart and his family were set to move out dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions raging inside me. I stood at the window, watching as a moving truck pulled up to the curb. Bart emerged from the house, carrying a box. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw a flicker of regret in his gaze before he quickly looked away. Jennifer followed, leaning heavily on Cole's arm. She glanced up at my window, her expression unreadable. As I watched them load the truck, memories flooded back. The day we moved in, our housewarming party, the countless dinners and lazy Sundays we'd shared. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was I making a mistake? The doorbell rang, jolting me from my reverie. I opened it to find Sarah standing there, a bottle of champagne in one hand and a determined look on her face. "I figured you could use some moral support," she said, stepping inside. I smiled gratefully. "You have no idea." We sat in the kitchen, watching the proceedings through the window. Sarah poured us each a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings," she toasted. As we clinked glasses, Bart appeared in the doorway. "Natalie, can we talk, just for a minute?" Sarah squeezed my hand and discreetly left the room. I steeled myself, facing Bart. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. I wanted to say I'm sorry, for everything. I never meant for things to end up like this." I felt a lump in my throat. "Neither did I, Bart. But we can't go back." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I know. I just hope, someday, you can forgive me." As he turned to leave, I called out, "Bart?" He paused, looking back. "I hope you find happiness," I said softly. A sad smile crossed his face. "You too, Nat. You deserve it." And then he was gone. I watched from the window as the moving truck pulled away, taking with it the remnants of my old life. Sarah reappeared, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "How are you feeling?" I took a deep breath. "Honestly, I'm not sure. Relieved, sad, scared, all of the above." She nodded understandingly. "That's normal. But you know what? You're free now. This is your chance to rediscover yourself." As her words sank in, I felt a spark of excitement ignite within me. She was right. For the first time in years, I was truly free to live life on my own terms. We spent the rest of the day reimagining the house. We moved furniture, discussed paint colors, and planned a complete overhaul of the guest room, Jennifer's old room, into a home office. As evening fell, we sat on the patio, enjoying the peaceful silence. Sarah's phone buzzed, and she grinned as she read the message. "So," she said, a mischievous glint in her eye, "remember my colleague, David? The one I told you about?" I nodded, curious. "Well, he's been asking about you. Wanted to know if you might be interested in grabbing coffee sometime." I felt a flutter of nervousness and excitement. "I don't know, Sarah. Isn't it too soon?" She shook her head. "It's just coffee, Nat. No pressure, but it might be nice to remember that there are good men out there, men who will put you first." I thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "You know what? Tell him I'd love to." As Sarah tapped out a reply, I gazed out at the garden, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt hopeful. This house, once a symbol of my failed marriage, now represented a new beginning. It was mine, truly mine, to fill with new memories, new friendships, and perhaps someday new love. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the end of one chapter and the exciting beginning of another. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it head-on, stronger and wiser than before. As the sun set on this tumultuous day, I realized that sometimes the end of one dream is simply the beginning of a better one, and I couldn't wait to see what this new dream had in store for me. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the quiet of our bedroom, startling me awake. I fumbled for it in the dark, my heart racing as I saw Evan's name on the screen. He never called this late. "Evan, what's wrong?" I asked, my voice thick with sleep. Silence greeted me, then a muffled sound. Was he crying? "Laura, I can't do this anymore," he finally said, his words slurred. "I've met someone else." The world tilted beneath me. I gripped the phone tighter, willing myself to have misheard. "What are you talking about? Where are you?" "I'm sorry, Laura. I should have told you sooner. I've been seeing her for months." My stomach lurched. "Months? Who is she?" "It doesn't matter. I'm leaving you. I'll be by tomorrow to get my things." The line went dead. I sat there frozen as the reality of what just happened crashed over me in waves. Hours later, I was still sitting on the edge of the bed when sunlight began to filter through the curtains. The chirping of birds outside felt like a cruel joke. How could the world go on as if nothing had changed? A knock at the door jolted me from my daze. I stumbled downstairs. hoping against hope that it was all a bad dream and Evan would be there ready to apologize for a drunken mistake. Instead, I found Anna on my doorstep, concern etched across her face. "Laura, you look awful. What happened?" I crumpled into her arms, finally letting the tears flow. Between sobs, I managed to choke out, "Evan, he's leaving me. He's been cheating." Anna guided me to the couch, her arm around my shoulders. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. When did you find out?" "Last night. He called. He was drunk, said he'd be here today to get his things." Anna's eyes flashed with anger. "That coward. He didn't even have the decency to tell you face to face." I shook my head, feeling hollow. "I don't understand. We were trying for a baby. Everything seemed fine." "Men," Anna spat. "They can be real bastards sometimes. You deserve so much better, Laura." A car door slammed outside. My heart leapt to my throat as I saw Evan's SUV in the driveway. "I can't face him," I whispered, panic rising. "Anna, please." She squeezed my hand. "I've got this. You go upstairs. I'll deal with him." I retreated to the bedroom, my sanctuary now tainted by last night's phone call. I could hear muffled voices downstairs, Anna's sharp and angry, Evan's low and defensive. Footsteps on the stairs. My breath caught as the door opened, revealing Evan. He looked terrible, unshaven, bloodshot eyes reeking of alcohol. "Laura," he began, his voice rough. "I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen." Anger flared within me, burning away the numbness. "Never meant for what to happen, Evan? For me to find out? How long have you been lying to me?" He flinched. "It's complicated. You wouldn't understand." "Try me," I challenged, rising to face him. "Explain how you could do this to us, to our marriage." Evan's face hardened. "There is no us anymore, Laura. I'm in love with someone else. I'm moving out today." The finality in his voice was like a physical blow. I watched in stunned silence as he began throwing clothes into a suitcase. "What about our plans?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The family we wanted to build?" He paused, not meeting my eyes. "Sometimes things don't work out the way we planned. You'll be better off without me." As he zipped up the suitcase, a wave of desperation washed over me. "Evan, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. Take some time." He shook his head. "It's too late for that. I'm sorry, Laura, I really am." With that, he was gone, leaving me alone with the shattered remains of the life we'd built together. I sank to the floor, surrounded by the echoes of broken promises and unanswered questions. Downstairs, I heard the front door close, followed by the roar of Evan's engine fading into the distance. Anna's soft footsteps approached, and I felt her arms wrap around me. "It's going to be okay," she murmured. "You're strong, Laura. You'll get through this." But as I sat there, my world crumbling around me, I wondered how I could possibly pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. The divorce papers lay on the coffee table, a stark reminder of how quickly life can change. I stared at them, my hand shaking as I reached for the pen. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. We were meant to grow old together, raise children, build a life. Now, all those dreams were crumbling before my eyes. A knock at the door startled me. Anna poked her head in, her eyes full of concern. "How are you holding up, sweetie?" I tried to smile, but it felt more like a grimace. "I'm fine, just processing." She sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You don't have to be strong all the time, Laura. It's okay to fall apart sometimes." The dam broke. Tears streamed down my face as I leaned into her embrace. "I don't understand, Anna. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong?" "No, honey. This is all on Evan. He's the one who broke his vows, not you." As if summoned by his name, my phone buzzed with a text from Evan. "We need to talk. Can I come over?" I showed Anna the message, my stomach churning. She frowned. "You don't owe him anything, Laura, but if you want to hear him out, I'll stay with you." Taking a deep breath, I typed a reply. "Fine. Be here in an hour." The next 60 minutes crawled by. I paced the living room, rehearsing what I'd say, trying to steel myself against whatever excuses or manipulations Evan might throw my way. When the doorbell rang, my heart leapt into my throat. Anna squeezed my hand before I went to answer it. Evan stood on the porch, looking more put together than the last time I'd seen him. The familiar scent of his cologne hit me, bringing a rush of memories I quickly pushed aside. "Laura," he said, his voice soft, "thank you for seeing me." I stepped back, letting him in, but maintaining my distance. "What do you want, Evan?" He glanced at Anna, then back to me. "Can we talk privately?" Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Anna, I replied, crossing my arms. Evan sighed. Fine. Look, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I made a terrible mistake. I want to come home to work things out. The words I'd longed to hear just days ago now rang hollow. And what about her, the woman you've been seeing? He had the decency to look ashamed. It's over. It was never serious. You're the one I want to be with, Laura. We can start over, maybe even try for that baby we always wanted. I felt the room spin. How dare he dangle our dream in front of me like this? Anna must have sensed my distress because she stepped forward, her voice sharp. That's low, Evan. You can't just waltz back in here and expect everything to be forgiven. Evan's face hardened. This doesn't concern you, Anna. It's between me and my wife. Ex-wife, I corrected, finding my voice. You made your choice, Evan. You don't get to change your mind now that your affair didn't work out. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Please, Laura, I love you. We can get past this. For a moment, I wavered. The thought of reconciliation, of salvaging our marriage was tempting. But then I remembered the pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights wondering what I'd done wrong. No, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. We can't. I deserve better than this, Evan. Better than you. His face clouded with anger. You'll regret this, Laura. You're not getting any younger. Who else would want you? Anna stepped between us. That's enough. Get out, Evan. Now. As the door slammed behind him, I collapsed onto the couch, my body shaking with sobs. Anna held me, murmuring words of comfort. You did the right thing, Laura. I'm so proud of you. Through my tears, I nodded. It hurt. God, did it hurt, but for the first time since Evan's betrayal, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild my life without him. As night fell, I sat alone by the window, watching the stars emerge. The divorce papers still lay unsigned on the table, but I knew what I had to do. Tomorrow, I'd take the first step towards my new future, whatever that might hold. The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime a stark contrast to the dread pooling in my stomach. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. Claudia, my soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law, stood on the porch, her lips pressed into a thin line. Laura, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. We need to talk. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. As she brushed past me, the scent of her expensive perfume filled the air, bringing back memories of tense family dinners and veiled criticisms. Claudia settled herself on the couch, eyeing the living room with barely concealed disdain. I hear you're going through with this ridiculous divorce. It's not ridiculous, Claudia, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Evan made his choice. She waved her hand dismissively. Men stray, Laura. It's what they do. A good wife learns to look the other way. I felt my cheeks flush with anger. I deserve better than that. I deserve faithfulness and respect. Claudia's eyes narrowed. What you deserve is irrelevant. What matters is family. And you, my dear, have failed spectacularly at that. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I knew what was coming next, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. How long have you and Evan been trying for a baby? She continued, her voice sharp. 5 years, and not so much as a false positive. It's no wonder he looked elsewhere. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. That's not fair. We both wanted children. It wasn't just my... Oh, please, Claudia interrupted. We both know Evan is perfectly capable. The problem lies with you. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. Infertility is complex, Claudia. It's not always about blame. She stood pacing the room like a caged tiger. Blame? Who's talking about blame? I'm talking about responsibility. Your responsibility to this family, to give Evan the children he deserves. The children he deserves, I repeated, incredulous. What about what I deserve? A faithful husband, a supportive family? Claudia whirled on me, her eyes flashing. You ungrateful little... She caught herself, smoothing her expression into one of concern. Laura, dear, I'm only thinking of your best interests. You're not getting any younger. Who else would want you? The echo of Evan's words from the other day sent a chill down my spine. I don't need anyone to want me, Claudia. I want myself. I choose myself. She laughed, a cold, brittle sound. Don't be naive. You'll die alone, surrounded by cats, while Evan moves on and has the family he's always wanted. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and hurt came pouring out. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Get out of my house right now. Claudia blinked, taken aback by my sudden ferocity. Now, Laura. No, I cut her off. I'm done listening to you. I'm done letting you make me feel small and inadequate. Evan's affair is not my fault. Our fertility struggles are not my fault. The only thing I'm guilty of is staying in this toxic situation for far too long. I strode to the front door, throwing it open. Leave, Claudia, and don't come back. For a moment, she stood there, shock written across her face. Then her features hardened. You'll regret this, Laura. When you're all alone, with nothing and no one, you'll wish you'd listened to me. As she stormed out, I slammed the door behind her, my whole body shaking. I leaned against it, sliding down to the floor as sobs racked my body. Minutes or hours later, I couldn't tell. I heard a key in the lock. Anna's worried face appeared as the door opened. Laura, oh honey? She knelt beside me, pulling me into a hug. What happened? Through hiccuping sobs, I recounted Claudia's visit. Anna's face grew stormy as I spoke. That witch, she muttered. Laura, look at me. She tilted my chin up, her eyes fierce. You are strong, you are worthy, and you are not alone. We're going to get through this together, okay? I nodded, clinging to her words like a lifeline. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the living room, I made a silent vow to myself. No more letting others define my worth. It was time to reclaim my life on my own terms. The law office of Jameson and Associates loomed before me, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun. I took a deep breath, smoothing my blouse and straightening my shoulders. This was it, the first step towards reclaiming my life. Anna squeezed my hand. You've got this, Laura. I'll be right here when you're done. I nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. As I pushed through the revolving doors, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. For the first time in years, I was taking control of my destiny. Laura Thompson? A smartly dressed woman approached me. I'm Melissa Jameson. Please, come this way. She led me to a sleek conference room, gesturing for me to take a seat. Before we begin, I want you to know that everything you say here is confidential. I'm here to protect your interests, Laura. I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. Thank you. I'm not sure where to start. Melissa's eyes softened. Why don't you tell me about your marriage? When did things start to go wrong? For the next hour, I poured out my heart. The years of trying for a baby, the growing distance between Evan and me, the devastating revelation of his affair. Melissa listened intently, taking notes and occasionally asking for clarification. Laura, she said finally, her tone serious. Based on what you've told me, I believe we have a strong case for divorce. However, there's something else we need to discuss. My heart raced. What is it? She slid a folder across the table. Our investigators have uncovered some concerning financial activity in your joint accounts. With trembling hands, I opened the folder. Page after page of bank statements, transfers to unknown accounts, large withdrawals. My head spun as I tried to make sense of it all. What does this mean? I whispered. Melissa leaned forward. It appears that Evan has been systematically moving money out of your shared accounts for months, possibly years. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table, fighting waves of nausea. How much? We're still calculating the total, but it's substantial. Hundreds of thousands, at least. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat. But that's impossible. We don't have that kind of money. Melissa's expression was grim. I'm afraid you did, Laura. The question now is, where did it go? As the implications sank in, a cold fury replaced my shock. All those years of scrimping and saving, putting off vacations, delaying home repairs, while Evan was secretly siphoning away our future. What do we do now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. We fight, Melissa said firmly. We'll file for divorce immediately and petition for a full financial disclosure. If Evan has hidden assets, we'll find them. I nodded, a strange calm settling over me. Do it. I want everything he took from me. As I left the office, my mind reeled with everything I'd learned. Anna took one look at my face and pulled me into a fierce hug. What happened in there? She asked. I pulled back, meeting her concerned gaze. Evan's been stealing from me, Anna, for years. Everything we worked for, it's gone. Her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with anger. That bastard. Laura, I'm so sorry. I shook my head, a newfound determination coursing through me. Don't be. This changes everything. I'm not just fighting for my freedom anymore. I'm fighting for justice. As we walked to the car, I felt a shift inside me. The Laura who had walked into that office, scared, uncertain, was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Anna," I said, pausing by the car door, "I need a favor." "Anything," she replied without hesitation. I met her gaze, my voice steady. "I need you to help me pack up the house. I'm not spending another night under the same roof as Evan's lies." Anna's face broke into a fierce grin. "Now that's the Laura I know. Let's go show that cheating thief what you're made of." As we drove away from the law office, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in months I felt hope. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. The courthouse loomed before me, its stone facade a silent witness to countless battles fought within its walls. Today it would bear witness to mine. I clutched my folder of documents, each page a testament to Evan's betrayal and deceit. Anna squeezed my arm. "You ready for this?" I nodded, steeling myself. "As ready as I'll ever be." We climbed the steps, the click of my heels echoing in the cavernous entrance hall. Melissa, my lawyer, met us at the courtroom door, her face a mask of professional calm. "Laura, remember what we discussed. Stay composed, no matter what Evan or his lawyer might say." I took a deep breath, nodding. As we entered the courtroom, I saw Evan for the first time in months. He sat beside his lawyer, looking polished and confident. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something. Regret? Anger? Before his face hardened into a neutral mask, the judge entered, and we all rose. As the proceedings began, I felt a surreal detachment, as if I were watching someone else's life unravel on a movie screen. Evan's lawyer painted a picture of a troubled marriage, insinuating that my obsession with having a child had driven Evan away. I gripped the edge of the table, willing myself to stay calm as he twisted our years of struggle into a weapon against me. When it was Melissa's turn, she methodically dismantled their arguments, presenting evidence of Evan's infidelity and financial misconduct. I watched Evan's face as bank statements and text messages were entered into evidence, his cool facade cracking under the weight of his exposed lies. "Your Honor," Melissa said, her voice steady, "my client has suffered not only the emotional trauma of her husband's infidelity, but also significant financial harm. We are requesting full disclosure of all assets and a fair division of marital property." Evan's lawyer jumped up. "Objection, Your Honor. My client denies any financial wrongdoing. Mrs. Thompson's claims are baseless and vindictive." The judge peered over his glasses. "Overruled. Mr. Thompson, given the evidence presented, the court orders a full financial audit. You have 30 days to provide a complete accounting of all assets and transactions for the past 5 years. I exhaled slowly, relief washing over me, but my moment of triumph was short-lived. "Your Honor," Evan's lawyer interjected, "in light of these unfounded accusations, my client is amending his petition. We're seeking full ownership of the marital home and a larger share of joint assets to compensate for the damage to Mr. Thompson's reputation." The room spun. Our home, the one we'd lovingly restored together, where I'd imagined raising our children, now another battleground in this war. As the judge called a recess, Evan approached me, his voice low. "Laura, don't do this. We can still work things out. Remember all we've been through together." I met his gaze, searching for any trace of the man I'd once loved. "You're right, Evan. I do remember everything we've been through. That's why I know this is the only way forward." His face darkened. "You'll regret this. When you're alone, with nothing, you'll wish you'd listened to reason." As he walked away, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. For the first time, I saw Evan clearly, not as the man I'd loved, but as the manipulator he'd become. Outside the courtroom, Anna and Melissa huddled around me. "Laura, are you okay?" Anna asked, her eyes full of concern. I straightened my shoulders, a new resolve burning within me. "I'm more than okay. I'm ready to fight." Melissa nodded approvingly. "That's what I like to hear. But Laura, you should know. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. Are you prepared for that?" I thought of our home, filled with memories both bitter and sweet. I thought of the years spent trying to build a family, only to have it all crumble beneath me. And I thought of the future. Uncertain, yes, but full of possibilities I'd never dared to imagine before. "I'm prepared," I said, my voice steady. "Whatever it takes, I'm going to reclaim my life. Evan took enough from me. He doesn't get to take my future, too." As we left the courthouse, the sun breaking through the clouds felt like a sign. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The divorce wasn't an end. It was a beginning. My beginning. 2 years after the divorce, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my dress. The woman staring back at me was almost unrecognizable, confident, radiant, and genuinely happy. I touched the delicate pendant Randy had given me on our 6-month anniversary, a symbol of our new beginning. "You look beautiful, Mom," came a voice from the doorway. I turned to see Lily, Randy's 12-year-old daughter, smiling at me. My heart swelled with love for this child who had accepted me so readily into her life. "Thank you, sweetheart," I replied, reaching out to squeeze her hand. "Are you ready for the party?" She nodded enthusiastically. "Dad's already downstairs, greeting the first guests." As we descended the stairs, the sound of laughter and conversation filled the air. Our home, a cozy townhouse we'd bought together, was full of friends and family, gathered to celebrate our first wedding anniversary. Randy's face lit up as he saw us. He crossed the room, planting a kiss on my cheek. "There's my beautiful wife," he murmured. For a moment I was overwhelmed by the sheer joy of it all. After the pain and betrayal of my past, I'd found love again, a love built on trust, respect, and genuine partnership. The evening flowed with warmth and laughter. As I moved among our guests, I caught snippets of conversation, friends remarking on how happy Randy and I looked, how well Lily was doing in school, plans for summer vacations and future get-togethers. It was during a lull in the party that I felt it, a sudden wave of nausea that had me gripping the kitchen counter for support. Anna, ever observant, was at my side in an instant. "Laura, are you okay?" she asked, concern etched on her face. I nodded, taking deep breaths. "I'm fine. Just a little dizzy. It's probably the champagne." But as the night wore on, the feeling persisted. By the time the last guest had left and we'd finished cleaning up, exhaustion hit me like a tidal wave. Randy noticed immediately. "Honey, you look pale. Why don't you go lie down? I'll finish up here." I didn't argue, collapsing onto our bed fully clothed. As I drifted off to sleep, a nagging thought tugged at the edges of my consciousness, but I was too tired to grasp it. The next morning, I woke to find Randy already up, Lily's laughter drifting up from the kitchen. As I sat up, that same wave of nausea hit me. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. With trembling hands, I counted back the days since my last period. How had I not noticed? We'd been so careful, knowing the heartbreak I'd experienced before. I crept to the bathroom, thankful for the pregnancy test I'd kept hidden away, a remnant of my past life with Evan. The 3 minutes it took for the results felt like an eternity. When I finally looked down at the stick, my world tilted on its axis. 2 pink lines stared back at me, unmistakable and life-changing. Pregnant. After years of trying, of heartbreak and loss with Evan, here I was, expecting a child with Randy. Joy and terror warred within me. What if something went wrong? What if I couldn't carry to term? And how would Lily feel about a new sibling? I sank to the bathroom floor, overwhelmed by the magnitude of this moment. Memories of my past struggles flooded back. The disappointment each month, the failed treatments, the way Evan had eventually blamed me for our inability to conceive. But this was different. I was different. Randy was different. A soft knock on the door startled me. "Laura?" Randy's voice was tinged with worry. "Are you okay in there?" I looked at the test in my hand, then at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had weathered storms and come out stronger. She had found love again, built a new family, and now stood on the precipice of a dream she'd thought lost forever. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Randy's concerned face came into view, and I felt a surge of love so strong it nearly knocked me off my feet. "Randy," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I have something to tell you." The doctor's office was eerily quiet as Randy and I sat hand in hand, waiting for the results of my latest ultrasound. At 20 weeks pregnant, every appointment felt like walking a tightrope between hope and fear. "Laura Thompson?" a nurse called, and we both stood, hearts racing. Dr. Patel greeted us with a warm smile, but I could sense an undercurrent of tension. "Laura, Randy, please have a seat." I gripped Randy's hand tighter as Dr. Patel pulled up the ultrasound images on her computer screen. "As you can see," she began, pointing to a grainy black and white image, "the baby's development is progressing well in most areas. However, I'm concerned about the size of the fetus. It's measuring smaller than we'd expect at this stage. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. What does that mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Patel's expression softened. It could be nothing to worry about. Some babies are simply smaller. But given your history of fertility issues, I'd like to run some additional tests to rule out any complications. Randy squeezed my hand. What kind of tests? An amniocentesis would give us the most comprehensive information, Dr. Patel explained. But I want to be clear. There are risks involved. As she detailed the procedure and its potential complications, I felt as if I were underwater, her words muffled and distant. All I could think about was the tiny life growing inside me, the miracle I'd waited so long for, now potentially at risk. Laura, Randy's voice broke through my haze. What do you think? I looked from him to Dr. Patel, then down at my slightly rounded belly. I need to think about it. The drive home was silent, both of us lost in our own thoughts. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Lily peering out the window, waving excitedly. The sight of her brought fresh tears to my eyes. Inside, our babysitter quickly picked up on the tension. Is everything okay? She asked as she gathered her things. Randy forced a smile. Just a long day. Thanks for watching, Lily. As soon as the door closed behind her, Lily bounded up to us. How's the baby? Did you get new pictures? I felt my throat constrict. The baby's fine, sweetheart. Why don't you go start your homework? We'll talk more at dinner. Once Lily was upstairs, I collapsed onto the couch, the weight of the day finally crashing down on me. Randy sat beside me, pulling me close. Talk to me, Laura, he murmured. What are you thinking? I took a shuddering breath. I'm terrified, Randy. What if something's wrong? What if I lose this baby too? He held me tighter. We don't know that anything's wrong, and whatever happens, we'll face it together. But as the days passed, the fear grew. Every twinge, every moment I didn't feel the baby move sent me into a spiral of panic. I found myself withdrawing, spending hours researching every possible complication, torturing myself with worst-case scenarios. A week after the appointment, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the amniocentesis consent forms. The risks swam before my eyes: miscarriage, infection, preterm labor. How could I make this decision? The sound of the front door opening startled me. Lily burst in, followed by Randy. Mom, Dad says we can order pizza tonight. Can we get extra cheese? Lily's excitement was palpable. I tried to smile, but it felt more like a grimace. Sure, sweetie, whatever you want. Randy's brow furrowed as he took in the scene, the scattered papers, my red-rimmed eyes. Lily, why don't you go decide on a movie for us to watch later? Once she was out of earshot, Randy knelt beside me. Laura, this can't go on. You're making yourself sick with worry. I couldn't meet his eyes. I can't help it. Every time I close my eyes, I see all the ways this could go wrong. I don't know if I can survive losing another baby. Randy cupped my face in his hands, forcing me to look at him. Listen to me. You are the strongest person I know. Whatever happens, we will get through it. But you have to let me in. Let me help you carry this burden. As I looked into his eyes, so full of love and concern, something inside me broke. The walls I'd been building crumbled, and I collapsed into his arms, sobbing. I'm so scared, I whispered. I know, he murmured, stroking my hair. I am too, but we're in this together. You, me, Lily, and this baby. We're a family. In that moment, surrounded by Randy's love and the sounds of Lily humming upstairs, I made my decision. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them head on. For my family, all of them. The hospital waiting room buzzed with nervous energy as I sat, one hand on my swollen belly, the other clutching Randy's. At 36 weeks pregnant, we were here for what should have been a routine checkup, but nothing about this pregnancy had been routine. Laura Thompson? A nurse called, and we stood following her to the examination room. Dr. Patel entered, her face serious. Laura, Randy, I'm afraid we've detected some irregularities in the baby's heartbeat. We need to perform an emergency C-section. The world tilted beneath me. But it's too early, I whispered, panic rising. We don't have a choice, Dr. Patel said gently. The baby is in distress. Everything after that was a blur of activity. As they prepped me for surgery, I clung to Randy's hand, terror and hope warring within me. Just before they wheeled me into the operating room, a commotion erupted in the hallway. To my shock, I saw Claudia pushing past nurses. Evan close behind. Laura, Claudia cried, her face a mask of concern I'd never seen before. "We just heard. You can't do this." Evan stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "Laura, please, come home with us. We can take care of you and the baby. This is meant to be our second chance." For a moment, I was transported back to our old life, the years of trying, the heartbreak, the blame. But then I felt Randy's steady presence beside me, heard Lily's voice in my head calling me Mom. I took a deep breath, finding strength I didn't know I possessed. "Claudia, Evan, I appreciate your concern, but this is my family now. My home, my life." Claudia's face hardened. "You ungrateful girl, after everything we've done for you." "That's enough," Randy interrupted, his voice firm. "Laura needs to get to surgery. Please leave." As security escorted them out, I saw a flicker of something, regret, acceptance, cross Evan's face. But I had no time to dwell on it as they wheeled me away. The operating room was a flurry of activity. Through my fear, I focused on Randy's voice, steady and reassuring. "You've got this, Laura. You're the strongest person I know." And then suddenly a cry pierced the air. Strong, defiant, alive. Our baby. "It's a girl," Dr. Patel announced, her voice thick with emotion. "She's small, but she's fighting." Tears streamed down my face as they placed her on my chest, this tiny perfect being we'd fought so hard for. As I looked into her eyes, I saw not just our future, but my past. Every struggle, every heartbreak that had led me to this moment. In the recovery room, surrounded by Randy, Lily, and our new daughter, I felt a sense of peace I'd never known before. Anna burst in, her face glowing with joy as she took in the scene. "Oh, Laura," she breathed. "She's beautiful. What's her name?" Randy and I exchanged a look. We'd discussed names, but nothing had felt right until this moment. "Hope," I said softly. "Her name is Hope." As if recognizing her name, Hope opened her eyes, her tiny hand wrapping around my finger. In that gesture, I felt the weight of my journey. The pain of betrayal, the struggle to rebuild, the fear and joy of this pregnancy. But I also felt the strength I'd gained, the love I'd found, the family I'd built. A knock at the door drew our attention. To my surprise, I saw Claudia standing there alone this time. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usual poise gone. "May I come in?" she asked hesitantly. I looked at Randy, who nodded slightly. "Of course," I said. Claudia approached the bed, her gaze fixed on Hope. "She's perfect," she whispered. Then, to my shock, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Laura, for everything. I was wrong about you, about all of this." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I thought of all the pain, all the cruel words, but as I looked at Hope, at Randy and Lily, I felt the last of my bitterness melt away. "Thank you, Claudia," I said softly. "Would you like to hold your granddaughter?" As Claudia cradled Hope, her face transformed by wonder, I felt the final pieces of my life click into place. This was my family, not defined by blood or past mistakes, but by love, forgiveness, and hope. In that moment, surrounded by the people I loved, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. My journey had been long and painful, but it had led me here, to a love deeper than I'd ever imagined and a strength I never knew I possessed. As Hope's tiny hand wrapped around my finger once more, I smiled. This was just the beginning of our story. The box of chocolates sat on my nightstand, a silent reminder of another Valentine's Day spent alone. I traced my finger along the gold-embossed lettering, savoring the bittersweet irony. For the past 5 years, I'd gifted myself these decadent treats, a secret rebellion against my husband's perpetual forgetfulness. "Clara?" Daniel's voice echoed from downstairs. "Have you seen my phone?" I sighed, pushing myself off the bed. "Coming, dear." As I descended the stairs, I caught sight of Daniel frantically patting his pockets, his brow furrowed in concentration. It was a familiar scene, one that had played out countless times over our 7-year marriage. "Did you check the coffee table?" I asked, my voice tinged with forced patience. Daniel's eyes lit up. "Ah, there it is!" He snatched the device, clutching it to his chest like a precious artifact. I frowned, a niggling sense of unease creeping up my spine. "You've been awfully attached to that thing lately. Everything okay at work?" His shoulders tensed, almost imperceptibly. "Just busy, that's all. You know how it is." But I didn't know. Not anymore. There was a time when Daniel would share every detail of his day, no matter how mundane. Now he was a closed book, and I was running out of ways to pry it open. "I was thinking," I ventured, desperate to bridge the growing chasm between us, "maybe we could go out for dinner tonight?" That new Italian place downtown looks nice. Daniel's eyes darted to his phone, then back to me. Oh, I can't tonight. I've got a work thing. A work thing? On Valentine's Day? He shrugged, not meeting my gaze. You know how it is in accounting, numbers don't take holidays. I bit back a retort, forcing a smile instead. Of course. Maybe another time. As Daniel hurried out the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I'd spent years convincing myself that his forgetfulness and emotional distance were just quirks, part of the package I'd signed up for when I said I do. But now, watching him cradle that phone like a lifeline, I wondered if I'd been fooling myself all along. My phone buzzed, startling me out of my reverie. It was a text from my best friend, Maggie. Happy V-Day, Han. How's Loverboy treating you? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. How could I explain the knot in my stomach, the growing certainty that my marriage was unraveling thread by thread? Instead, I typed, same old, same old. You know Daniel. Maggie's response was immediate. Girl, you deserve better than same old. Want to grab a drink later? I'll be your Valentine. I smiled, grateful for the offer. Thanks, but I think I'll stay in. Romantic night with Netflix and my chocolates. Suit yourself, but if you change your mind, I'm here. I set the phone down, my gaze drifting to the mantel where our wedding photo sat. We looked so happy, so in love. When had that changed? And more importantly, why hadn't I noticed? Determined to shake off my melancholy, I headed to the kitchen. If Daniel wouldn't celebrate with me, I'd make my own damn romantic dinner. I was elbow-deep in pasta dough when I heard it, the distinct ping of a text message. Wiping my hands, I reached for my phone, but it was silent. The sound had come from Daniel's phone, forgotten on the counter in his rush to leave. I shouldn't look. I knew I shouldn't. But as another ping echoed through the kitchen, my resolve crumbled. With trembling fingers, I picked up the device. The screen lit up, revealing a string of messages from someone named Audrey. My heart pounded as I read the words that would change everything. Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Happy 3-month anniversary. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. As I stood there surrounded by the remnants of my abandoned dinner plans, I realized that the life I thought I knew was nothing but a carefully constructed lie. And in that moment, as the weight of betrayal settled over me like a shroud, I made a decision. Daniel may have forgotten what day it was, but I wouldn't. This Valentine's Day would be one neither of us would ever forget. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing with questions and doubts. The image of those text messages burned behind my eyelids every time I closed them. When morning came, I was exhausted but determined to find answers. Daniel stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed and disheveled. Morning, honey, he mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. I watched him carefully, searching for any sign of guilt or remorse. Late night? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. Yeah, work's been crazy lately. I bet, I muttered under my breath. As Daniel fumbled with his tie, I noticed his phone on the counter. My fingers itched to grab it, to search for more evidence of his betrayal. But before I could make a move, he snatched it up, shoving it into his pocket. Gotta run, he said, planting a quick kiss on my cheek. Don't wait up tonight. I might be late again. The door closed behind him, and I was left alone with my suspicions and a half-empty pot of coffee. I spent the day in a fog, going through the motions at work while my mind churned with possibilities. Was it just a fling? Had he fallen in love with this Audrey? And how long had it been going on? By the time I got home, I was a bundle of nerves. I paced the living room, rehearsing what I'd say when Daniel walked through the door, but as the hours ticked by, my anger gave way to worry. At midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I dialed Daniel's number, my heart pounding with each ring. Hello? His voice was muffled, distant. Daniel, where are you? It's past midnight. There was a pause, then a rustling sound. Oh, Clara, I'm sorry I lost track of time. I'm still at the office. In the background, I heard a woman's laugh, quickly stifled. Are you sure about that? I asked, my voice trembling. Of course, he said, too quickly. Look, I've got to go. I'll see you in the morning. The line went dead, and I stared at the phone in disbelief. He hadn't even tried to hide it. I spent the rest of the night alternating between rage and despair. By morning, I had made up my mind. I wouldn't confront him yet. Not until I had irrefutable proof. When Daniel came home, looking rumpled and guilty, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled and nodded as he spun a tale about a late-night audit and computer problems. "You must be exhausted," I said, laying it on thick. "Why don't you go take a nap? I'll wake you for dinner." Relief flooded his face. "Thanks, honey. You're the best." As soon as I heard his snores from upstairs, I pounced on his briefcase. My hands shook as I rifled through papers and receipts. Nothing incriminating, but then my fingers brushed against something smooth and silky. I pulled out a scrap of fabric, lacy, black, and definitely not mine. The lingerie tag was still attached, bearing yesterday's date. My vision blurred with tears as I clutched the damning evidence. How could he do this to me? To us? Just then, Daniel's phone buzzed on the coffee table. Without thinking, I grabbed it, my thumb hovering over the home button. This was my chance to know for sure. But did I really want to see what was on that screen? Could our marriage survive if I went down this rabbit hole? As if in answer, another message came through. The preview popped up, shattering any last shred of doubt. "Last night was amazing, baby. Can't wait for our weekend getaway. Audrey." I sank to the floor, the phone clutched to my chest. The Daniel I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a stranger who lied as easily as he breathed. Upstairs, I heard him stirring. In a few moments, he'd come down, ready to spin more lies. But this time, I'd be ready. With shaking hands, I opened his phone and started taking screenshots. If Daniel wanted to play games, fine. But he was about to learn that two could play, and I played to win. I woke up on the morning of our third wedding anniversary with a mix of hope and dread churning in my stomach. Despite everything, a part of me still clung to the belief that Daniel would remember, that he'd surprise me with flowers or a romantic gesture. I spent hours preparing a special dinner, Daniel's favorite pot roast, simmering in the slow cooker, filling the house with a savory aroma. I even bought a new dress, a deep burgundy number that hugged my curves in all the right places. As the sun began to set, I lit candles and uncorked a bottle of wine. The table was set, the mood perfect. All that was missing was my husband. 7 o'clock came and went. Then 8. By 9, the pot roast was dry, the candles had burned low, and my patience had worn thin. I called Daniel's cell, but it went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," I said, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. "Just wondering where you are. It's our anniversary, remember?" Midnight found me curled up on the couch, still in my new dress, clutching a nearly empty wine bottle. The sound of keys in the lock jolted me awake. Daniel stumbled in, his tie askew and his eyes unfocused. "Clara?" he slurred. "What are you still doing up?" I stood, swaying slightly. "What am I doing up? What are you doing coming home at midnight on our anniversary?" He blinked, confusion clouding his features. "Anniversary? That's not until—" His voice trailed off as realization dawned. "Oh, God, Clara, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot." Clearly, I spat, the hurt and anger of the past few weeks bubbling to the surface. "Too busy with your work things, right?" Daniel stepped closer, and that's when I smelled it. A cloying, floral scent that most definitely wasn't mine. "Is that perfume?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He paled, taking a step back. "What? No, it's probably just from the office. You know how Susan overdoes it with the air freshener?" "Don't lie to me, Daniel," I said, my hands clenching into fists. "I'm not stupid. I know something's going on." "Clara, please," he pleaded. "You're overreacting. I just had a few drinks with the guys after work. I lost track of time. That's all." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. But the evidence was piling up, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. "Then why have you been so secretive with your phone?" I challenged. "Why are you always working late? And don't tell me it's just work, because I know that's not true." Daniel's face hardened. "Have you been spying on me?" "I shouldn't have to spy on my own husband," I shouted, tears stinging my eyes. "You're supposed to be honest with me. You promised, remember, for better or for worse?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "I don't want to do this now, Clara. I'm tired and you're clearly upset. Let's talk in the morning when we've both had some sleep." "No," I said, planting myself between him and the stairs. "We're going to talk about this now." "I want the truth, Daniel. Are you having an affair?" The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel's eyes darted around the room, looking anywhere but at me, and in that moment, I knew. The truth I'd been desperately trying to deny was written all over his face. Who is she? I whispered, my voice breaking. Daniel's shoulders slumped in defeat. Clara, But before he could finish, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Without thinking, he pulled it out, glancing at the screen. I caught a glimpse of the name before he could hide it. Audrey. It's her, isn't it? I said, a strange calm settling over me. Audrey, your little 3-month anniversary girl. Daniel's head snapped up, shock and guilt warring on his face. How did you? It doesn't matter. I cut him off. What matters is that you've been lying to me, cheating on me, and I want to know why. As I stood there facing the man I thought I knew, I realized our marriage would never be the same. The question was, did I even want to save it anymore? The morning after our anniversary disaster, I woke up with a pounding headache and a heart full of resolve. I'd spent the night on the couch, unable to bear the thought of lying next to Daniel. As I heard him stirring upstairs, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. Daniel shuffled into the kitchen, looking as wrecked as I felt. Clara, he began, his voice hoarse. About last night? I held up a hand, silencing him. Save it, Daniel. I don't want to hear any more excuses or lies. He slumped into a chair, running his hands through his disheveled hair. What do you want me to say? The truth, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. All of it, starting with who Audrey is. Daniel's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock. How do you know about Audrey? Does it matter? I countered. What matters is that you've been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back. I want to know why. He sighed, defeat etched into every line of his face. It just happened. Audrey's new at the office. She's young, exciting. She made me feel alive again. Each word was a dagger to my heart. But I refused to let him see how much he was hurting me. And I don't make you feel alive? What about our vows, Daniel? What about the life we built together? I know, he said, his voice cracking. I messed up, Clara. I'm so sorry. It won't happen again, I promise. Just, please, give me another chance. I wanted to believe him. Part of me longed to forgive him, to pretend this was all a bad dream. But the larger part, the part that had been silently screaming for months, what knew better? How can I trust you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How do I know you won't do this again? Daniel reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I'll do whatever it takes, he pleaded. Counseling, an open phone policy, anything. Just don't give up on us. I stood up, needing to put some distance between us. I need time to think, I said, and I need proof that you're serious about fixing this. He nodded eagerly. Of course, anything. What do you need? Your phone, Dad, I said, holding out my hand. I want to see everything. Daniel hesitated, his hand instinctively moving to his pocket. Clara, I don't think that's... If you have nothing to hide, then it shouldn't be a problem, I interrupted, my patience wearing thin. With visible reluctance, he handed over the device. My hands shook as I unlocked it, dreading what I might find. The evidence was there, plain as day. Hundreds of messages, each one more intimate than the last. Photos that made my stomach churn. Plans for romantic getaways, all while I sat at home, wondering where my husband was. 3 months, I said, my voice hollow. You've been lying to me for 3 months. Daniel started to speak, but I cut him off. Don't. There's nothing you can say to make this right. I scrolled through the messages, each one adding fuel to the fire of my anger and hurt. And then I saw it, a conversation from just this morning. Audrey, last night was amazing. When can I see you again? Daniel, soon, baby. I just need to figure out how to handle Clara. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. Daniel lunged for it, but I was faster. Handle me? I spat, fury coursing through my veins. Is that what I am to you now? A problem to be handled? Clara, please, Daniel begged. It's not what it looks like. I was going to end it with Audrey, I swear. But I was done listening to his lies. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. Get out, I said, my voice cold and firm. Pack a bag and get out of this house. I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. Daniel's face crumpled. Clara, don't do this. We can work it out. I shook my head, a strange calm settling over me. No, Daniel, we can't. Not anymore. As I watched him trudge upstairs to pack, I realized this was just the beginning. The life I thought I knew was over, but a new chapter was about to begin. One where I would no longer be a victim of Daniel's lies and betrayal. The house felt eerily quiet after Daniel left. I wandered from room to room, my mind racing with questions and doubts. Had I made the right decision? Was this really the end of our marriage? I found myself in our bedroom, staring at the photos on the dresser, happy memories now tainted by betrayal. With trembling hands, I picked up Daniel's phone, which he'd left behind in his haste to leave. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. I had to know everything. For hours, I pored over every message, every photo, every scrap of evidence of Daniel's infidelity. Each discovery was like a knife to my heart, but I couldn't stop. I needed to understand the full extent of his betrayal. As night fell, I stumbled upon a conversation that made my blood run cold. Daniel, I can't wait for our anniversary dinner next week. Audrey, me too, baby. 3 whole months. Who would have thought? Daniel, it's been the best 3 months of my life. I love you, Audrey. I felt the air leave my lungs. Love? He loved her? The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. In a daze, I made my way to the kitchen, pulling out a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. As I poured a glass with shaking hands, my eyes fell on the calendar hanging on the fridge. There, circled in red, was next Friday's date. Exactly 3 months from when Daniel's behavior had first changed. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. While I'd been planning our wedding anniversary dinner, Daniel had been planning a celebration of his affair. Fury coursed through my veins, replacing the hurt and confusion. How dare he? How dare they? Before I knew what I was doing, I found myself back at Daniel's phone, scrolling through his messages with renewed purpose. I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. I was forming a plan. I discovered the name of the restaurant where they planned to have their anniversary dinner. It was an upscale place downtown, one Daniel and I had always talked about trying but never got around to. As I dug deeper, I uncovered more details about their relationship. Audrey was 24, barely out of college. She worked in Daniel's department, a new hire he'd been mentoring. They'd been meeting for lunch dates, stolen moments in the office, and weekend getaways disguised as business trips. Each new piece of information fueled my determination. I wouldn't let them get away with this. I wouldn't be the fool they clearly thought I was. With newfound resolve, I picked up my own phone and dialed a number. Maggie, it's Clara. I need your help. My best friend listened in shocked silence as I poured out the whole sordid tale. When I finished, there was a moment of quiet before she spoke. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. What can I do? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. I need you to help me crash their anniversary dinner. What? Maggie gasped. Clara, are you sure that's a good idea? No, I admitted, but I need to do this. I need to see it for myself, to confront them both. Will you help me? There was a pause, and for a moment I feared she'd refuse. But then, of course I will. What's the plan? Relief washed over me. I'm not sure yet, but I know I can't do this alone. Can you come over tomorrow? We can figure it out together. I'll be there first thing in the morning, Maggie promised. And Clara, we're going to get through this. You're stronger than you know. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, hurt, fear, but also a glimmer of something else. Hope, maybe, or determination. Whatever it was, I knew one thing for certain. Next Friday night, Daniel and Audrey's perfect little world was going to come crashing down, and I would be there to watch it burn. I picked up Daniel's phone one last time, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. After a moment's hesitation, I typed out a message to Audrey. Can't wait for our anniversary, baby. I have a big surprise planned. I hit send, a grim smile playing on my lips. Oh, it would be a surprise, all right. Just not the one they were expecting. My heart pounded as I stepped into the dimly lit restaurant, Maggie close behind me. We'd spent the past week planning this moment, and now that it was here, I felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. Are you sure about this? Maggie whispered, squeezing my arm. I nodded, scanning the room. I have to do this. I need answers. And there they were, in a cozy corner booth. Daniel, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in months, leaning in close to a young woman with cascading blonde hair. Audrey. That's them, I breathed, my legs suddenly feeling weak. Maggie steadied me. Remember the plan. You've got this, Clara. Taking a deep breath, I straightened my spine and strode towards their table, Maggie following discreetly behind. As I approached, I heard Audrey's tinkling laugh, saw Daniel's hand resting on hers. They were so engrossed in each other, they didn't notice me until I was right beside them. Well, isn't this cozy? I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Daniel's head snapped up, his face draining of color. Clara, what are you doing here? Audrey looked between us, confusion clouding her features. Daniel, who is this? I smiled, cold and sharp. I'm his wife, and you must be the woman he's been screwing behind my back for the past 3 months. The shock on Audrey's face would have been comical if the situation weren't so painful. Wife, you told me you were separated. Daniel stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his wine glass. Clara, please, let's not do this here. Why not? I challenged, my voice rising. Afraid of making a scene? Afraid people might find out what a lying, cheating bastard you are? Heads were turning now, curious diners watching the drama unfold. I didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see the truth. Audrey stood too, grabbing her purse. I can't believe this. You lied to me, Daniel, to both of us. Audrey, wait, Daniel pleaded, reaching for her arm. But she jerked away, her eyes flashing with anger. Don't touch me, she spat. You told me you loved me, that we had a future together. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, honey, he told me the same thing 7 years ago when he put this ring on my finger. Daniel's eyes darted between us, panic etched on his face. Please, both of you, can we just go somewhere private and talk about this? There's nothing to talk about, I said, my voice ice cold. You made your choice, Daniel. Now you get to live with the consequences. I turned to Audrey, who looked close to tears. He's all yours, sweetheart, but a word of advice, don't believe a word he says. As I turned to leave, Daniel grabbed my arm. Clara, wait, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I love you. Something inside me snapped. All the hurt, the anger, the betrayal of the past months came rushing to the surface. Before I knew what I was doing, my hand connected with his cheek in a resounding slap. The restaurant fell silent. Daniel staggered back, his hand to his face, shock written all over his features. Don't you dare, I hissed. Don't you dare say you love me after everything you've done. Maggie appeared at my side, her arm around my shoulders. Come on, Clara, let's go. As she led me away, I heard Audrey's voice, thick with emotion. Is it true, Daniel? Have you been lying to me this whole time? I didn't stay to hear his response. I'd heard enough lies to last a lifetime. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, and I finally let the tears fall. Maggie held me as I sobbed, my body shaking with the force of my grief. It's over, I whispered. It's really over. Maggie squeezed me tighter. No, honey, it's not over. It's just beginning. You're free now. As we walked away from the restaurant, leaving behind the shattered remains of my marriage, I realized Maggie was right. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. And for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. But first, I had one more thing to do. One final confrontation that would decide the course of the rest of my life. The morning after the restaurant confrontation, I woke to the sound of someone pounding on my front door. My head throbbed, a reminder of the bottle of wine I'd shared with Maggie after our dramatic exit. I stumbled downstairs, half expecting to see Daniel begging for forgiveness. Instead, I found Audrey on my doorstep, her eyes red-rimmed and her hair disheveled. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the house. I closed the door, my mind racing. What's there to talk about? I think we both know the truth now. Audrey whirled to face me, her expression a mix of anger and desperation. Did you know? All this time, did you know about us? I shook my head, feeling a strange pity for this young woman who'd been just as deceived as I had. I only found out recently, but I suspect you didn't know about me either. She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. He told me you were separated, that he was planning to leave you for me. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sank into the armchair across from her, my legs suddenly weak. He what? Audrey looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. He said he loved me, that we were going to start a life together. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat. Oh, honey, he's been saying that to me for 7 years. We sat in silence for a moment, two women united in their betrayal by the same man. Then Audrey spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. What do we do now? Before I could answer, the front door burst open. Daniel stood there, his face haggard, his eyes wild. Clara, please, we need to talk, he pleaded. Then he saw Audrey and froze. What's going on here? I stood, feeling a strange calm settle over me. What's going on, Daniel, is that your lies are finally catching up with you. He stepped into the room, his gaze darting between Audrey and me. "I can explain. I never meant to hurt either of you." "But you did," Audrey said, rising to stand beside me. "You hurt us both." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, his desperation palpable. I know, I messed up. But Clara, you have to believe me. I love you. I want to make this work." I felt Audrey stiffen beside me. "What about me?" she demanded. "You said you loved me too." Daniel's face crumpled. I do. I love you both. I can't choose." The room fell silent. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him for the first time in months. I saw the man I'd fallen in love with, the man I'd built a life with. But I also saw the liar, the cheater, the man who'd broken my heart. In that moment, I made my decision. "You don't have to choose, Daniel," I said, my voice steady. "Because I'm choosing for you. I want a divorce." Daniel's face went pale. "Clara, no. Please, we can work this out." I shook my head, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "No, we can't. You've made your bed, Daniel. Now you can lie in it." I turned to Audrey, who was watching the exchange with wide eyes. "He's all yours if you want him, but remember, once a cheater, always a cheater." Audrey looked at Daniel, then back at me. To my surprise, she shook her head. "No, I deserve better than this. We both do." As if on cue, we both moved towards the front door. Daniel stood frozen, watching as we prepared to walk out of his life. "Wait," he called, his voice breaking. "What am I supposed to do now?" I paused at the threshold, looking back at the man I'd once loved more than anything in the world. "That's not our problem anymore, Daniel. It's yours." With that, Audrey and I stepped out into the sunlight, leaving Daniel alone in the house that had once been our home. As we walked down the driveway, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. "What now?" Audrey asked, echoing her earlier question. I took a deep breath, feeling the first stirrings of hope in my chest. Now we start over. Both of us. As we walked away from my old life, I realized that this wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what the future held. 1 year after that fateful day when Audrey and I walked away from Daniel, I stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. Gone was the insecure, heartbroken shell I'd become. In her place stood a confident, vibrant woman ready to take on the world. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, surprisingly smooth given the circumstances. Daniel, perhaps out of guilt or a genuine desire to make amends, hadn't contested any of my demands. The alimony was generous, giving me the financial freedom to pursue a dream I'd long forgotten. My aromatherapy business, Essence of Clara, was thriving. What had started as a hobby to distract myself from the pain of betrayal had blossomed into a successful venture. The scents I created told stories of healing, growth, and self-discovery, my own journey bottled for others to experience. As I applied a dab of my latest creation, a blend of lavender, rosemary, and citrus that I'd named New Beginnings, my phone buzzed with a text from Maggie. "Ready for your big night? Can't wait to see you shine." I smiled, feeling a flutter of excitement in my stomach. Tonight was the grand opening of my first brick-and-mortar store. It felt like the culmination of everything I'd been through, a testament to my resilience and growth. As I drove to the store, I couldn't help but reflect on the twists and turns that had led me here. The pain of Daniel's betrayal had been excruciating, but it had also been the catalyst for my transformation. In losing him, I'd found myself. The store was already buzzing with activity when I arrived. Friends, family, and loyal customers milled about, admiring the displays and sampling the products. Maggie rushed over, enveloping me in a warm hug. "Clara, this place is amazing. I'm so proud of you." I squeezed her back, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I couldn't have done it without you." As I made my way through the crowd, greeting guests and answering questions about my products, I caught sight of a familiar face. Audrey stood near the back, looking uncertain. Our eyes met, and after a moment's hesitation, I walked over to her. "I wasn't sure if I should come," she said, fidgeting with her purse strap, "but I wanted to see how you were doing." I smiled, surprising myself with the genuine warmth I felt towards her. "I'm glad you did. How are you?" We chatted for a few minutes, and I learned that Audrey had gone back to school, pursuing a degree in social work. Like me, she'd found a way to turn her pain into purpose. As the night wore on and the crowd thinned, I found myself alone in the store, savoring the moment. I ran my hand along the shelves, each bottle a reminder of how far I'd come. A knock at the door startled me from my reverie. I turned to see Daniel standing outside, a bouquet of flowers in his hand. For a moment I froze, old feelings of hurt and anger threatening to surface. But as I looked at him, really looked at him, I realized something profound. The sight of him no longer had any power over me. I opened the door, accepting the flowers with a polite smile. "Thank you, Daniel. They're lovely." He shifted uncomfortably, his eyes taking in the store. "This place is incredible, Clara. You've done amazing things." "I have," I agreed, feeling a surge of pride. We stood in awkward silence for a moment before Daniel spoke again. "I'm sorry for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know that." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. "Thank you for saying that. I hope you find happiness, Daniel. I really do." As he turned to leave, I called out, "Daniel?" He paused, looking back at me. "I forgive you," I said, the words feeling right as they left my lips. "Not for you, but for me. I'm ready to let go of the past and embrace my future." The look of gratitude and relief on his face was palpable. With a final nod, he walked away, taking the last vestiges of my old life with him. I locked up the store, feeling lighter than I had in years. As I drove home, I realized that all of this, was just the beginning. I had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and despair, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more authentically myself than ever before. Tomorrow, I would wake up and gift myself a box of those high-end chocolates, but this time they wouldn't be a consolation prize or a secret rebellion. They would be a celebration of my strength, my resilience, and the beautiful independent woman I had become. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I smiled, excited for the first time in years about what the future might hold. My story wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. And I couldn't wait to see where it would take me next.